Chapter 634. Busy Qin Sheng hadn't seen his uncle Zhu Weigua for a long time. The last time he saw his uncle was when he was elected as a non-executive director of the Chang'an department. At that time, his uncle had a deep talk with him. Although it was not a long talk, it was very direct. His uncle wanted him to make a choice for the future. No matter what choice he made, the Zhu family would support him, and they had the ability to support his life. Zhu Weigua also said that there was no need to be afraid of Qin Chang'an. The Zhu family had the ability to wrestle with Qin Chang'an. He was afraid that Qin Sheng could only choose the path of the Qin family because of Qin Chang'an. After all, the Qin family had been in deep trouble. In the end, Qin Sheng chose the path of the Qin family. He felt that he should do something, and he could only face the difficulties head-on. He could never retreat to the second choice. Zhu Weigua didn't say anything. Since Qin Sheng made such a choice, of course he had his own considerations. He couldn't deliberately change Qin Sheng's choice because it was contrary to his original intention. Since then, Qin Sheng had never seen Zhu Weigua again. Most of the time, he saw the news about his uncle on TV and the internet. This was the life of a person in a high position. There were too many official affairs, and a small thing might involve the lives of many ordinary people. Therefore, they naturally had to sacrifice a lot of personal space, which couldn't be changed. If it weren't for the sudden deterioration of the old lady's condition, Qin Sheng didn't know when he could see his uncle. The other members of the Zhu family had long been used to this rhythm. Qin Sheng could understand it more or less. After he came to Shanghai, he had never seen his youngest uncle except when he came to Shanghai during the Spring Festival. After the old lady woke up, the doctors didn't let the relatives in immediately. They asked about the old lady's specific situation first, and then let Zhu Qingwen and Qin Sheng into the ward. The old lady looked a little pale and weak. The medical staff of the old lady told them in private that maybe because of Qin Sheng's return, the old lady was in a good mood during this period, so she didn't have any problems. Now, the problems that had been accumulated for a long time finally broke out. Zhu Qingwen held the old lady's hand and said worriedly, "Mom, how do you feel?" The old lady didn't want her children to worry. She endured the physical discomfort and said with a smile, "I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm old." Although Qin Sheng saw his grandmother smiling, he could feel that it was very difficult for her to smile. After all, only the old lady knew the pain her body was suffering. As a result, Qin Sheng, who was standing by her side, said with relief, "Grandma, you will definitely be fine. The doctor said that you can go back after a few days of observation." Of course, what Qin Sheng said was a lie. He just didn't want his grandmother to feel too depressed. After all, his grandmother was very resistant to going to the hospital this time. Maybe she knew her physical condition very well, so she didn't want to go to the hospital. The old lady looked at her long-lost grandson. Her eyes were full of kindness and love. In fact, at her age, she didn't have any extravagant wishes. She definitely had regrets. Who could live without regrets? The two biggest regrets in her life were the premature death of her eldest daughter and the disappearance of her most beloved grandson for many years. She had no ability to make up for the former. After all, life and death was up to fate. As for the latter, she thought she would never have the chance to see it again, but she did not expect that it would be fulfilled in her lifetime. Of course, the old lady still wanted to live for a few more years. It would be better if she could hold her grandson's baby. However, the old lady knew that one should be contented. Everything could not be perfect. As a result, after thinking through these things, the old lady felt that she could live as long as she could. Even if she closed her eyes now, it would be the same. "You are trying to make me happy. I am not a 3-year-old child. I know my body best. I have already seen through it. Don't think too much about it," the old lady said with a weak smile. At this time, Zhu Qingwen said, "Mom, Big Brother has arrived in Shanghai. He will arrive at the hospital soon." Hearing this, the old lady was a little unhappy and said, "What is he doing here? I am fine. So many national affairs are not enough for him. Let him go back quickly. Don't delay the business." Zhu Qingwen knew that the old lady would definitely say so. He chuckled and said, "Oh, Mom, Big Brother knows his limits. He hasn't seen you for a long time. You have such a big problem. If he doesn't come, do you think you will feel ease? The old lady was just saying. Of course, she knew her children's filial piety. Her children had never let her down. At this time, there was a commotion in the corridor outside. Qin Sheng hurriedly walked out of the ward and saw his uncle and aunt walking towards him. They were surrounded by several guards in casual clothes, who had already controlled the entire corridor. Since his uncle's identity was quite special, he could understand this point. He walked over slowly. The guard in the front obviously had never seen him before. When he was about to stretch out his hand to stop him, Zhu Weiguo waved his hand to signal the guard to leave quickly. Uncle, aunt. Qin Sheng greeted them respectfully. Zhu Weiguo didn't have time to say too much to Qin Sheng. He asked directly, How's your grandmother? She just woke up. Small aunt is with her, Qin Sheng said. Zhu Weiguo didn't say anything more. He went straight to the ward. Zhu Weiguo's wife patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, Sheng, don't worry too much. Your grandmother will be fine. Compared with the previous times, this was indeed not a big deal. After all, the hospital had issued a notice of critical illness several times before. This time was not bad. Qin Sheng nodded with a smile and followed his aunt to the ward. As expected, when he entered the ward, he saw his grandmother scolding his uncle. What she said was similar to what she said just now. His uncle just smiled and replied. In front of parents, everyone was always a child. Qin Sheng didn't stay in the hospital for long. He left after saying goodbye to his grandmother, uncle, and aunt. His cousin would also come in the afternoon. The hospital couldn't accommodate so many people. Moreover, what his grandmother needed most now was rest. Qin Sheng went back to the company first. He dealt with the related affairs of the company and listened to Zhong Shan's report about the interview results in the morning. Some people were satisfied, while others were not. Zhong Shan had already made a list. However, Zhong Shan still suggested that if Qin Sheng had time, he could meet Sheng Jing and Xu Yong alone. These people were relatively arrogant. If they couldn't get a satisfactory position this time, it was very likely that they would jump ship and leave. After all, there were many shadows in Chang'an. Many people were worried, and many companies were eyeing this fat piece of meat. Uncle Lin was not in the company. He had already returned to the hotel after the interview. In the afternoon, he would take Annie Wong to meet a friend who was his former business partner. He had a good relationship with him. After he was imprisoned, he visited him many times. Lin Shi had always remembered this kindness. After Qin Sheng finished his work in the company, he hurried to Shangshan Ruoshui. Mizan and the rest had already finished their work in Hangzhou and returned to Shanghai this morning. Next, they would officially get busy and rebuild Shangshan Ruoshui. Qin Sheng naturally trusted them very much. He was ready to give them full responsibility, but the problem of funds still needed Qin Sheng to solve. Although Qin Sheng now had a small treasury, this little money could not support the new Shangshan Ruoshui. In addition to the most important problem of resources, of course, this kind of high-end private club also needed to spend money. Therefore, Qin Sheng had to prepare enough food and fodder first. On one hand, he had to take out money himself. This was not a problem. He could borrow some from his sister first. After all, his sister was a rich woman. On the other hand, Qin Sheng had to quickly determine the new shareholders of Shangshan Ruoshui. The shareholders not only brought resources, but also brought funds. When Qin Sheng arrived at Shangshan Ruoshui, Mizan and the others were already waiting inside. Except for them, there were no outsiders in Shangshan Ruoshui. Brother Wu and Bach had already set off for Hangzhou. Lao Chong said that he was looking for help, but no one knew where he was. Hao Lei and the others were busy outside. Why was talent important? Because many things only needed to be ordered by the superiors. These talents naturally knew what to do and how to do it. We've been waiting for you for 3 hours. You're finally here. Yu Fengji teased him on purpose after she saw him. However, she was still very happy to be able to return to Shanghai and return to Qin Sheng's side again. Women, after all, needed nothing more than those things. Qin Sheng smiled and explained, Recently, too many things have happened. You're a busy person now. I am afraid that I will have to make an appointment to see you in the future, Yu Fengji said. Qin Sheng was not angry. He knew that this was her character. But Mizan tried to smooth things over. Fengji, you are always unreasonable. Qin Sheng is not the Qin Sheng of the past. Qin Sheng smiled and said, let's get down to business. After hearing Qin Sheng's words, Yu Fengji stopped joking. She still knew her limits. While Qin Sheng was talking, Brother Wu, Ba He, and Wang Jian were waiting in a tea house in Cici, Hangzhou, for the first distinguished guest they were going to meet in Hangzhou. This distinguished guest was introduced by Qin Sheng. He was none other than Wei Li, whom Qin Sheng had met in Tsinghua University seminar. Wei Li was clinging to Qin Sheng. Even though the outside world could not see the future of the Chong and school clearly, he still felt that the Chong and school would definitely pass the test safely. Moreover, Qin Sheng would go back to Hangzhou to take revenge. So many things had to be reshuffled. When someone was out, someone would take over. There were too many benefits involved in this. Naturally, Wei Li did not want to miss it. When Wei Li walked into the room, Brother Wu and the others quickly stood up and greeted him, young Master Wei. Hangzhou's local tyrant, Wei Li, might look very humble in front of Qin Sheng. But after returning to Hangzhou, young Master Wei was very famous, and everyone had to give him some face. Therefore, in front of Brother Wu and the others, Wei Li was still quite imposing. But because of his relationship with Qin Sheng, Wei Li would not be too distant. He smiled and said, we are all friends, Sid. Chapter 635. Mistakenly boarding a pirate ship, Chong Baji's master actually didn't accept many disciples. There were only 4 in total. Chong Baji was the youngest. The one in Timu Mountain was the eldest martial brother. As for the other 2 martial brothers, one had passed away many years ago, and the other had been missing for many years. Perhaps they already had their own peaceful or wealthy lives, so they didn't want to contact them. They could understand this. Their sect paid particular attention to cultivation and seclusion, so whether it was Chong Baji's master or this eldest martial brother, they basically never left the mountain after they became old. Chong Baji was relatively special. He had always been cultivating in the world. These years, he had experienced too much of the fickleness of the world, but Chong Baji also knew that one day, he would also cultivate in seclusion. The scenery of Timu Mountain was beautiful, and some places were rarely visited by people. This eldest martial brother, who basically only visited Chong Baji, lived in a Taoist temple all year round. Because their sect had some relationship with the Taoist Yuanjin sect, Chong Baji's master chose Zhongnan Mountains to live in seclusion, because that was the ancestral court of the Yuanjin sect. Although they were more or less related, they didn't pay much attention to it. Only this eldest martial brother paid more attention to cultivation and followed many rules. The Taoist temple was neither big nor small, and the incense was not strong. This place was originally deserted, and no one came on normal days, so it was very quiet. When Chong Baji arrived, it was already afternoon. He went all the way to the entrance of the Taoist temple without any hindrance. He was stopped by a martial nephew who was guarding the door. The martial nephew had seen Chong Baji before, but he didn't recognize him at first. After he recognized him, he quickly ran over. Young martial uncle, why are you here? Although this martial nephew had only met Chong Baji 3 times, he remembered him very clearly because they all knew that this martial uncle had a very high attainment in martial arts. Even their master thought that he was no match for him, so he was the idol of some of them. Chong Baji knew that the missing senior martial brother didn't accept many disciples. In the past, he only had 5 or 6 disciples. This eldest martial brother, who cultivated in the deep mountains and forests, had accepted many disciples over the years. He didn't refuse disciples. His only requirement was that they have good character. Over the years, the Taoist temple seemed to be suffering from poor incense offerings, but its popularity was not low. The villagers in the nearby mountains would often come to burn incense, and some would send their children here to learn martial arts. Some of them would stay for a few years, while others would stay for 3 to 5 months. These people could be considered disciples. Of course, there were also those who had been waiting for a long time, such as Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo. Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo were orphans adopted by the eldest senior brother, so they had basically stayed in the mountains since they were children. Is your master here? Chang Baji asked casually. He knew that this big senior brother was also very secretive. He often visited various places, and sometimes he would chat with his old friends in Heaven Eye Mountain for a few days. The young martial nephew smiled and said, "Master is here. He is waiting for you." Chang Baji was a little surprised, but he understood after thinking about it. This eldest senior brother had done some research on the Book of Changes, so he must have done some divination. Chang Baji didn't say anything more to this martial nephew. He quickly walked into the Taoist temple. From afar, he saw the eldest senior brother sitting in the courtyard with his eyes closed. When he walked in, the eldest senior brother, who looked very thin but very spirited, slowly opened his eyes. Before the eldest senior brother said anything, Chang Baji took the lead and said, "Senior brother, did you foresee that I would come?" The eldest senior brother did not get up, but just sat there and said, "Small tricks, no big deal." Chang Baji found it funny and said, "Senior brother, why did you foresee that I would come? If I were an immortal in heaven, why would I stay in the mortal world for a long time? But I can almost guess your purpose," the eldest senior brother said calmly. Chang Baji felt ashamed in this aspect, so he could only admit defeat and said, "Senior brother, you are still so powerful. Among us, only you can inherit the master's mantle. Don't flatter me. Tell me, what do you want to do with me this time?" The eldest senior brother suddenly changed his tone and asked impolitely. Chang Baji knew the eldest senior brother's temper, so he said honestly, "Senior brother, there is such a traitor in our sect. Shouldn't you clean up the sect?" The eldest senior brother stared at Chang Baji very seriously and said, "I handed them over to you at that time. That is your business. You can't blame me for not disciplining them properly." After the incident, Chang Baji told the eldest senior brother about this matter, but the eldest senior brother did not take any action. He laughed and said, "Since senior brother said so, then I will clean up the sect for senior brother and avenge martial nephew Qingyang." "That is your business." The eldest senior brother still said so. Chang Baji said slowly, "Then I want to borrow 1 or 2 martial nephews from senior brother. I am short of manpower recently, so I want to find someone to help me." The eldest senior brother suddenly stood up and said, "Chang Baji, this is the purpose of your visit. What do you mean by cleaning up the sect? You just want to borrow people from me, right?" Chang Baji hurriedly apologized and said, "Senior brother, how can you say that? I am really ready to clean up the sect, otherwise I will be sorry to the master. As for borrowing people, it is also another purpose. Recently, we are indeed short of people." Who knew that the eldest senior brother did not care about Chang Baji at all, and directly said, "See the guest out." After saying that, he stood up and was ready to go back to the room. Obviously, he was going to see the guest out. The martial nephew also walked over quickly and said, "Martial uncle." Chang Baji waved his hand and asked the little martial nephew to stay aside first. Then he ran into the room and began to coax and pester the little martial nephew. The martial nephew, who was listening outside, laughed so hard that he almost bent over. He did not expect the master and martial uncle to be so interesting. In any case, Chang Baji finally persuaded this stubborn senior apprentice brother. Finally, this senior apprentice brother agreed to lend him some people. He asked the little martial nephew outside the door to call his second disciple, who was traveling far away, to go to Shanghai. However, after he was done with Gu Xiaobo's matter, he couldn't control whether he stayed or left. Chang Baji did not care about anything else. He wanted to fool the person first. He knew that the second martial nephew was the most outstanding among the eldest senior brother's many disciples. In the tea house by the West Lake in Hangzhou, the West Lake under the setting sun was really beautiful. Wei Li sat in the private room and drank the best Longjing tea. This tea house was opened by his friend. Basically, it was not open to the public. It was only used to entertain his scoundrel friends. After Wei Li greeted them, Brother Wu and the others could come in. Hangzhou was not short of rich people. Naturally, rich people did not do everything for money. After all, the most successful thing in a person's life was to live a good life in the way he liked. Therefore, we can basically see that there were a lot of second-generation rich people, but the lives of the second-generation rich people were thousands of different. However, Wei Li was a very traditional, second-generation rich person. His ambition and desire were very big. Maybe it was the thinking that his father taught him since he was young, or maybe it was the Wei family's DNA. Wei Li laughed and said, "Old Qin didn't say when he will come to Hangzhou. I can't wait." Brother Wu had seen Wei Li before and knew that he was Qin Sheng's classmate in Tsinghua University. His background in Hangzhou was not simple. His father had been a famous businessman in Zhejiang for a long time. However, because he did not catch up with the trend, he was gradually surpassed by many people around him. However, a few years ago, his father suddenly hugged onto a big thigh. This thigh was so thick that everyone in Zhejiang knew about it. Moreover, they got closer and closer. Therefore, the Wei family suddenly exploded and started to have a smooth sailing. Now, his father's status in Zhejiang was very high. Therefore, everyone would give him face. Young master said that it might take some time. The things in Shanghai are not over yet. Recently, there are still some private matters, Brother Wu said honestly. He did not know what the young master said to Wei Li. Anyway, he was told to contact Wei Li first when he arrived in Hangzhou. He could also talk to Wei Li about most things. Wei Li looked at Ba He and Wang Jian. He guessed that these few people in front of him were the people in charge of Hangzhou's affairs. However, he did not know if they were capable enough. He was still a little worried. Wei Li thought for a moment and nodded. Did old Qin say what plans he has for Hangzhou's affairs? Brother Wu's answer almost made Wei Li vomit blood. Brother Wu said, "Young Master said that he will listen to young Master Wei. So today I also want to ask, young Master Wei, what plans do you have?" Wei Li almost cursed, but in the end, he held it in. Why did it feel like he had mistakenly boarded a pirate ship? Qin Sheng was trying to push him into a fire pit. He had not told his father about this yet. He planned to wait until the conditions were right, and he could see enough benefits. At that time, he would look for his father. At that time, his father would definitely push the boat with the current. Looking at Wei Li's deflated look, Brother Wu had roughly guessed it. Wei Li was silent for a moment before he said, "All right, since I have agreed, then I can only accept it. I have already prepared for the early stage. Next, I will think about it carefully. Don't be anxious, but you can't let me be in charge of everything. I don't have the energy to do that. Moreover, there are some things that I can't be in charge of." Brother Wu said very honestly, "Young Master Wei, don't worry about this. We know what we should do. As for other things, if it is not convenient for young Master Wei to be in charge, just tell us. We have enough manpower in Hangzhou." Hearing this, Wei Li was relieved and said, "That's good." However, no matter what, he still had to call Qin Sheng to discuss this matter. Moreover, when they really wanted to take action, Qin Sheng had to be in Hangzhou. If something really happened, he could not be in the front. He did not want to lose his reputation in Hangzhou. In Shanghai, Qin Sheng did not have time to care about Wei Li. He chatted with Mizan for a few hours and confirmed many things in the early stage. Next, he would go to find Xue Qinyin and confirm the final shareholder. After he was done, it was completely dark outside. Originally, Qin Sheng wanted to treat everyone to dinner, but Lin Su had already said that she would look for him after work. At this time, she had already arrived at Shangshan Ruoshui. This was Lin Su's first time in Shangshan Ruoshui. The security guard did not know her and wondered where such a beautiful woman came from. After Lin Su called Qin Sheng, he let her in and led Lin Su into Shangshan Ruoshui respectfully. Lin Su looked at Shangshan Ruoshui with interest. She felt that this place was quite interesting. At this time, Qin Sheng and Mizan happened to walk out from inside. Lin Su walked over quickly and took Qin Sheng's arm habitually. She said, "Are you hungry?" Chapter 636. Let's talk again. This was not the first time that Yu Fengji saw Lin Su. Every time she saw Lin Su, she was very jealous. It was not that she was stingy, but that any woman would feel the same way. The most important thing was that in front of Lin Su, all her pride was gone. She believed that there were better and more perfect women than Lin Su in this world, but she was definitely not as good as Lin Su, so she was not curious that Qin Sheng would choose such a woman as his life partner. Yu Fengji also wanted to be Lin Su, so that she could accompany Qin Sheng, instead of the current awkward identity. But how could there be any if? Because she was too worried about Qin Sheng, Lin Su did not bother to say hello to others. She first asked Qin Sheng if he was hungry. She knew that he must have been busy all day and probably had no time to eat. Hearing Lin Su's question, Qin Sheng seemed to remember that from last night until now, he seemed to have eaten nothing except drinking a few glasses of water. He had been busy all the time. If you didn't ask me, I almost forgot that I haven't eaten anything today. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Lin Su was a little unhappy in an instant and complained, "No matter how busy you are, you have to eat. It's not good for your health." Got it. Qin Sheng nodded obediently. He still listened to Lin Su on this kind of thing. Yu Fengji suddenly felt that why she was not as good as Lin Su. She seemed to pay too much attention to work with Qin Sheng and rarely cared about such small details like this. Lin Su bit her lower lip and said, "Then what do you want to eat? I'll go with you." "Let me think about it first," Qin Sheng said casually. Lin Su then remembered that there were other people and quickly greeted Mizzen politely. But she did not have much contact with them, just met them a few times, so she was not too familiar with them. Everyone watched Qin Sheng and Lin Su get in the car and leave. Yu Fengji looked at their backs for a long time and could not come back to her senses. When could she and Qin Sheng be like this? Liu Yuan had already entered the hall, and Mizzen was still standing there. Mizzen was also a woman, so she naturally understood Yu Fengji's current feelings. Moreover, she already knew those things between Yu Fengji and Qin Sheng. Mizzen said casually, "Are you very frustrated? Even if I told you I didn't, you wouldn't believe me," Yu Fengji said honestly. She knew that Mizzen was not mocking her. Their relationship had long gone beyond the ordinary working relationship. Now, they were best friends who talked about everything. Mizzen continued to ask, "Then do you want to continue?" "Sister, since I have made my choice, I will continue to move forward. Even if my head is broken and bleeding, I will not regret it," Yu Fengji said firmly. Yu Fengji was destined not to be an ordinary woman who was willing to be a mediocre person, and had her own thoughts, and Lin Su was not a day. Su Lin said. Shi Qin Sheng had not eaten for the whole day, so Lin Su said that she wanted to take him to eat something good. However, Qin Sheng only chose wonton and soup dumplings in the end. The two of them sat in the moderate-sized restaurant and ate happily. Of course, the atmosphere was warmer. Although there was few customers, had Yu Lin Yu, Yi was Yun Yu Qin in. Yu Lin Feng Lin Qin Lin was. Feng Lin Su nagged Qin Sheng again. "Don't do this in the future. No matter how busy you are, you have to eat. What if you're tired?" Qin Sheng said jokingly, "Wife, I'm thinking if one day your former pursuers know that their goddess has become a naggy middle-aged woman, how will they react?" Lin Su stared at Qin Sheng and said, "Do you think I'm naggy?" Qin Sheng took a bite of the bun to calm himself down. Women's focus was indeed different. He quickly replied, "How is that possible? I just asked casually, because I know that no matter how high the goddess is, she will eventually return to an ordinary life." "Then do you think I care about their feelings, or you?" Lin Su asked. Qin Sheng was disappointed. How could he be Lin Su's opponent? It seemed that he should not ask such low-level questions in the future. Goddess Lin was not someone to be trifled with. After dinner, the two of them were not in a hurry to go back. This was the old street of Jian. Lin Su held Qin Sheng's arm and strolled on the street. Qin Sheng carried Lin Su's bag, and Lin Su leaned her head on his shoulder. The sycamore trees by the roadside were rustling in the wind. The dim light stretched their shadows. Passers-by would occasionally look at them, but they would pass by in a hurry. Behind them were two cars with bodyguards from the Qin family. They did not care about what the bodyguards were thinking. Maybe they were thinking that the life of the rich was really comfortable, and so on. Qin Sheng's phone had been ringing several times. Lin Su reminded him to answer the phone, but he did not want to. He just wanted to enjoy a moment of silence. At this time, a middle-aged, greasy man suddenly ran over and blocked their way. Qin Sheng and Lin Su frowned at the same time. The middle-aged man handed out his business card and said, "Beauty, I am the director of a film company. I think you are very suitable for our casting. Are you interested in trying?" What a vulgar trick. This was Lin Su's most direct reaction. She had encountered this kind of pickup many times before. My husband is very rich, Lin Su replied very domineeringly. In the past, she had to think of all kinds of reasons. Now the reason was very simple. The middle-aged man was very embarrassed. Qin Sheng was not angry as long as he did not offend Lin Su. After all, Lin Su was more charming. Before the middle-aged man could think of other reasons, the Porsche behind them had suddenly stopped in front of him. The bodyguards of the Qin family, who were afraid of any accidents, quickly got out of the car and surrounded the middle-aged man with an unfriendly look. The middle-aged man seemed to understand and quickly said, "Sorry to bother you. Sorry to bother you." If he did not leave now, he might be beaten up. He did not want to be at a disadvantage, so it was better to leave first. The small episode did not interrupt Qin Sheng and Lin Su's romance. They continued to walk forward and met a little girl who was buying flowers. She ran over shyly and asked, "Brother, sister is so beautiful. Buy a bouquet of flowers for sister. Sister will definitely like it very much." Qin Sheng wanted to buy it, but Lin Su pulled Qin Sheng's arm. She did not want Qin Sheng to spend money. Although a bouquet of flowers did not cost much, if the goddess became a woman who took care of her husband and children, she would even save $1 for her man. It was rare for him to steal half a day of leisure. Of course, Qin Sheng would not be so stingy. Moreover, this little girl was also very cute and beautiful. So Qin Sheng asked with a smile, "Little girl, how many bouquets of flowers did you sell today?" The little girl muttered in a low voice, "Only one." Qin Sheng said very generously, "Well, I want all the rest of your flowers." Hearing this, the little girl stared at Qin Sheng in disbelief. She was so happy that she almost danced and asked, "Really?" Qin Sheng said happily, "Will I lie to you? How much is it in total?" Lin Su did not know whether to laugh or cry. She did not continue to stop Qin Sheng until Qin Sheng gave her the money and took the flowers. Then she complained, "You are really boring." Qin Sheng said with a cheeky smile, "This is for you." No matter how Lin Su complained, she still took the flowers from Qin Sheng happily. Then she hugged Qin Sheng and kissed him gently. "Thank you, honey." Hearing this, Qin Sheng's heart melted. It seemed that women still needed to be coaxed more. After all, the short-lived romance would not last. Qin Sheng's phone rang again. This time, he did not refuse. Instead, he took out his mobile phone and answered the call. When he found it was from his uncle, he immediately became nervous. He quickly answered the phone and said, "Uncle." Zhu Weiguo, who had returned to the old foreign-style house, was very unhappy. He said, "Why didn't you even answer the phone? What were you busy with?" Qin Sheng replied very seriously, "I was a little busy just now. I didn't see the phone ringing." "Uncle, what's the matter?" Lin Su had already let go of Qin Sheng. When she heard Qin Sheng call her uncle, of course, she already knew who Qin Sheng's uncle was. That man, with an illustrious identity, was someone who everyone would be wary of. Zhu Weiguo said directly, "I'll wait for you at the foreign-style house on Sinan Road." "How long will it take for you to come over?" Qin Sheng thought that something serious had happened. He said in a hurry, "I'll be right there. In 20 minutes. Zhu Weiguo did not say anything more and directly hung up. After Qin Sheng hung up, he could only say to Lin Su guiltily, "Wife, you go back first. Uncle has something to deal with. I have to rush there. I can't accompany you." Of course, Lin Su knew which was more important. She smiled and said, "It's okay. You go about your business first. The sooner you finish it, the sooner you can go to bed. If you don't come back at night, just tell me. I won't wait for you." Qin Sheng felt a little sorry. Recently, he had little time to accompany Lin Su. He could only hug her affectionately. After that, Qin Sheng told the bodyguard behind him to send Lin Su home safely. He told them not to leave until Lin Su arrived at the entrance of her house. These bodyguards all knew that. They were all professionals. In the old foreign-style house, as soon as Zhu Weiguo hung up the phone, his wife muttered, "Can't you talk nicely with the children? She just didn't answer your phone. Why are you so angry? Don't put on airs in front of the children." Zhu Weiguo also realized that he had been a little rude just now. He smiled bitterly and said, "I know I was wrong. I won't do it again." I won't do it again. Zhu Qingwen, who was sitting opposite Zhu Weiguo and his wife, covered her mouth. She was so petite that only the old lady and her sister-in-law could control her brother in the whole Zhu family. There was a man sitting next to Zhu Qingwen. Of course, he was not an outsider. He was her husband, the man who was in charge of this city now. Today, the two most powerful men of the Zhu family had arrived. Why did they suddenly call Qin Sheng over? What was going on? Zhu Qingwen asked in a low voice. Brother, I think we'd better not be too tough when we talk to Qin Sheng later. Anyway, he just came back not long ago. Zhu Weiguo frowned and said, Last time in Beijing, I already gave him a chance. Since he has chosen this path, we can't change it. Zhu Qingwen's husband said slowly, Let's talk more and see what he thinks. Chapter 637. I got at Zhu Weiguo's trip to Shanghai this time was not only because the old lady was suddenly hospitalized, but also because he wanted to discuss some things with Qin Sheng. Of course, it was impossible for him to talk to Qin Sheng on. However, it was not a big deal to talk to Qin Sheng about these things. It could also be considered as a precaution for Qin Sheng in advance. No matter what, Qin Sheng had chosen this path, so he had to bear these responsibilities and bear these setbacks. Moreover, he was already 30 years old, so he should know some things. Zhu Weiguo certainly knew a lot of things that others didn't, including Zhu Qingwen's husband, Zhu Changshan. He also knew a lot of things that others didn't know, but they couldn't do anything because of their positions. However, Qin Sheng was a member of the Zhu family after all. Telling Qin Sheng about these things was a precaution. They didn't want anything bad to happen to Qin Sheng on, but they didn't want anything bad to happen to Qin Sheng. Maybe they dared to talk about these things with Qin Sheng because the old lady was hospitalized. If the old lady was here, they wouldn't dare to mention it. Several cars were parked outside the courtyard of the old foreign-style house, and there were many plainclothes guards around. There were even several patrol cars near the street, not to mention the inside of the foreign-style house. Qin Sheng's driver was directly stopped when he drove to the gate of the old foreign-style house. Of course, Qin Sheng knew what was going on, so he immediately told the plainclothes guard that his name was Qin Sheng, and this was his grandmother's house. Soon, the plainclothes guard confirmed Qin Sheng's identity. However, he asked Qin Sheng to stop the car by the roadside, because there was no space inside. Qin Sheng was somewhat surprised, but he still got off the car and asked the bodyguards to wait outside, because his uncle was special. When Qin Sheng walked into the old-style foreign-style house, as he had expected, the yard of the old-style foreign-style house was also full of plainclothes. His uncle's secretary and guards were waiting outside. When they saw Qin Sheng, they greeted him politely and signaled his uncle to wait for him inside. The guard opened the door of the foreign-style house for Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng walked in slowly and immediately saw that apart from his uncle and aunt, his youngest aunt was also in the living room. What was more surprising was that even his youngest uncle's husband was there. Apart from them, there was no one else. Qin Sheng was inexplicably nervous. It was the first time for him to see such a big scene. Thinking of his uncle's tone on the phone just now, Qin Sheng murmured, Did he do something wrong? It seemed that after coming to Shanghai, he did not do anything except for the matter with Bossy in Shangshan Roche. But Small Ant knew about this matter. Feeling that the atmosphere in the living room was somewhat depressing, Qin Sheng walked over slowly with a heavy look on his face. His aunt, Wu Yajun, stood up with a smile and said, Shenger, you are here. Come and have a seat. Qin Sheng greeted them first, uncle, aunt, small uncle. Although they were quite serious when they were chatting just now, they did not want to give Qin Sheng too much pressure at this moment. Except for Zhu Weiguo, who was still serious, the others all smiled and nodded. Only then did the atmosphere ease up. Although Qin Sheng had experienced many big scenes, he was still a little restless at the moment, mainly because he wanted to figure out why his uncle suddenly called him over. It seemed that he was going to hold a criticism meeting, and the elders of the Zhu family were all present. Qin Sheng asked nervously, Uncle, what's the matter? You're looking at me like that, and I'm a little scared. Did I do something wrong? Zhu Qingwen could not help but say, Sheng, don't be nervous. This is not like you. Qin Sheng muttered in his heart, My small aunt, how can I not be nervous? You're a general and a mayor. How can I not be nervous? Even if someone dozens of times more powerful than me is in front of you, he will also be nervous. Sheng, have you ever thought about changing your way of life? Maybe there will be a very different scenery. Zhu Zhangshun took the initiative to ask. After all, Zhu Weiguo had talked with him once. Qin Sheng looked at his uncle and hesitated for a moment. He did not know why his uncle suddenly said this. Was this the theme tonight? Others also stared at Qin Sheng at this time. As Zhu Zhangshun said just now, this was the second chance they gave Qin Sheng. If Qin Sheng chose to leave the Qin family and go the way they wanted, then they would naturally try their best to cultivate Qin Sheng. At least within their ability, Qin Sheng would not have too many setbacks in 10 or 20 years. But if he chose to go the way of the Qin family, he would have to face all the pressure now. Qin Sheng did not think too much and said honestly, "Small uncle, I think it's good now. Are you sure?" Zhu Zhangshun frowned and asked. Zhu Qingwen sighed. She seemed to have expected such an answer. Based on her understanding of Qin Sheng during this period of time, Qin Sheng was not the kind of person who would change his decision at will. Since he had said that to Big Brother last time, he must have thought so. Zhu Weiguo shook his head helplessly. As expected, the Qin family was always so stubborn, whether it was old Master Qin, Qin Chang'an, or Qin Ran. Qin Sheng nodded without hesitation. Of course, he knew what his uncle meant. Zhu Zhangshun was also sure that Qin Sheng could understand what he wanted to say. Zhu Qingwen thought it was better to be direct and said in a low voice, "Sheng, we're doing this for your own good. You should be very clear about the situation of the Qin family now. You just came back not long ago, so you don't know how complicated it is, let alone how many dangers there are." Zhu Qingwen also wanted to say that such a complicated situation could not be handled by ordinary people. At that time, it might hurt Qin Sheng. If Qin Sheng chose the road that the Zhu family paved for him, he could naturally jump out of this whirlpool. At that time, no one would dare to hurt him. Qin Sheng replied with a smile, "Aunt, I know you are doing this for my own good. I also know that the Qin family is in a bad situation. But as a descendant of the Qin family, if I don't stand up at this time, I'm afraid that I will feel guilty for the rest of my life." Zhu Weiguo was very angry and said, "You are a descendant of the Qin family, but you also have the blood of the Zhu family. You should also think about us. We don't want anything bad to happen to you, and we don't want you to be involved in the Qin family's troubles. Do you have the heart to let your grandmother be angry at that time?" Qin Sheng did not know how to respond to Zhu Weiguo's words. Thinking that his grandmother was still in the hospital, he felt a little guilty. If something really happened at that time, his grandmother would definitely be angry. However, at this moment, Qin Sheng was more shocked that the situation of the Qin family could be more difficult than he had imagined, since his uncle and uncle had come forward to talk about this matter together. He had thought that the Qin family would be much better after the previous incident, but now it seemed that it was not necessarily so. After a few seconds of silence, Qin Sheng asked tentatively, "Uncle, can't you help him get through this difficulty this time?" From the information that Qin Sheng had learned so far, it was obvious that the Zhu family was not willing to be involved in this matter. Otherwise, they would not have talked about this matter today. However, Qin Sheng still wanted to ask. Zhu Weiguo replied without hesitation, "Impossible." His attitude was so resolute that Qin Sheng did not have the possibility of fantasizing at all. Wu Yajun, who was beside Zhu Weiguo, pulled him, indicating that he should not be so tough. Zhu Weiguo sighed and said, "Let me put it this way. Since your mother passed away, there has been no contact between our two families, not to mention that your father has taken a different path, which is not what we like. These years, if it were not for your sister, I am afraid that our two families would not have any contact at all. Now that you are back, we don't want to make things difficult for juniors like you, so we have eased the relationship. However, that is all. The Zhu family will definitely not be involved in the storm of the Qin family, which is what your father should and must bear." There are some words that Zhu Weiguo did not say, for fear that it would excite Qin Sheng. For example, the Zhu family and the Qin family were in different positions. Once the Zhu family was involved, it would affect a lot of things. Moreover, the two families were not in the same team at all. Qin Sheng said quietly, "Uncle, I see." After listening to Zhu Weigua's words, he was completely sure that there would be no more hope. At this time, Zhu Zhangshun asked, "So, Sheng, you have to think about the environment you will face and whether you can deal with those complicated situations. Many things are not as simple as you think." Zhu Zhangshun also did not say that, for example, Qin Sheng's father had accumulated such a rich family property in less than 20 years and could be so prosperous. How could there be no original sin? In particular, the background of the Chong and family was criticized by the outside world. How many interests were involved in it? Qin Sheng's answer was also very firm. He replied, "Uncle, I have made up my mind. Even if it is dangerous, I will not flinch." Zhu Weigua immediately said, "Since you have made up your mind, we will not say anything. This is your choice, not forced by others. So when you encounter difficulties and setbacks, don't blame us for not reminding you today, and don't blame us for not helping you." Qin Sheng said calmly, "Uncle, I know." Zhu Qingwen felt that the atmosphere was too stiff, so she patted Qin Sheng on the shoulder and said, "Sheng, don't blame us. Some things are not up to us. We are afraid that you will blame us in the future, so we want to make it clear to you in advance." Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Small aunt, I am not a child. I understand a lot of things, and I understand your standpoint." Zhu Weigua sighed and said, "Maybe this is also a test for you. However, this test was too difficult. The Qin family was the Qin family. The Zhu family was the Zhu family. Qin Chang'an was Qin Chang'an, and Qin Sheng was Qin Sheng. If Qin Chang'an died and Qin Sheng took over the helm of the Qin family, they would help him." Qin Sheng nodded with a smile, but his smile looked a little forced. He did not want to embarrass these elders, so he stood up and said, "Uncle, if there is nothing else, I will go back first." Zhu Qingwen held Qin Sheng's hand and said with a smile, "It is late. You go back first. We have something else to talk about." Qin Sheng said goodbye to the elders and left the old foreign-style house. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun were somewhat worried, so they walked Qin Sheng to the car and came back. Chapter 638. Too tired. The greatest hero is to serve the country and the people. This is my favorite sentence in Mr. Jin Yong's works. Mr. Jin Yong has a great influence on me, or, to be exact, on the entire online literature circle. Because many people have read his works, they have a lot to say, but they don't know what to say. An era has come to an end. From now on, there will be no more Master Jin in Jianghu. Farewell, Mr. Jin. After Qin Sheng left, the elders of the Zhu family had not left yet. The nanny prepared some fruits and refreshments. They were all nannies who had been with the old lady for many years, so they knew the identity of the old lady's children very well. Since she had been in the Zhu family for so long, she naturally knew a lot of rules, and the Zhu family also approved of her. After the nanny left, Zhu Zhangshun picked up an orange at random and said meaningfully, "Is it a blow to Qin Sheng?" Although Zhu Zhangshun had only seen Qin Sheng once during the Spring Festival, he still paid close attention to Qin Sheng and knew all about the Qin family. However, Qin Sheng had come to Shanghai several times for business. After all, he was busy with government affairs, far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Why did he suddenly talk about these things this time? First of all, Qin Sheng had just come back and needed time to adapt to his new identity. Now that half a year had passed, Qin Sheng should have adapted to it. Secondly, after Qin Sheng came back, he was destined to experience some things, and at the same time, he had to know some things so they could talk to him about these things. Now Qin Sheng had experienced all the things he should know. Zhu Weigua did not deny it. Although Qin Sheng said it casually, they did not know what he was thinking. In the past few months, they had been very fond of Qin Sheng, and this was the first time they talked about these things with Qin Sheng so seriously. Even if it is a blow, he will experience it sooner or later. It may be good for him to talk to him about these things earlier and let him make a choice earlier. I am afraid that he does not know a lot of things, and then he will pin his hope on us. If something really happens, he will really hate us because we did not help him, Zhu Weigua said honestly. This was also the reason why he talked to Qin Sheng now. Zhu Qingwen said, "I don't think Sheng is as fragile as you think. He has experienced a lot since he was a child. He is not a flower in a greenhouse. Besides, is he really so fragile as a child raised by old Master Qin? Zhu Weiguo didn't deny it and said, I've heard about him from you. He has experienced a few big setbacks and has been through life and death several times. If his heart wasn't strong enough, he would have been willing to be mediocre. This is also the reason why I dare to talk to him about these things. Zhu Zhangshun echoed, Big Brother is right. From his tone just now, I can see that even though this is the most difficult path, he still chose it without hesitation. This is not because he is conceited, but because he feels that this is the right path to choose. Zhu Weiguo nodded. These were also his thoughts. He replied, I hope he won't blame us. Wu Yajun, who had been silent all this while, said, Sheng won't. She trusted Qin Sheng very much. Zhu Qingwen could not bear to see this happen. She asked softly, Big Brother, no matter what happens to the Qin family, shouldn't we do something? I can't control Qin Chang'an, and I don't want to. But after all, the two of them are also members of the Zhu family. Zhu Zhangshun said with a smile, Qingwen, haven't I thought about what you're thinking? It's just that it's hard to control, and we have to think about when to help them. The most important thing is that we can only help Sheng and Ran. Zhu Weiguo could only say, Changshun is right. So let's talk about it later. Let's see how things develop first. If Sheng can take over smoothly, then we have a lot of room to maneuver. After hearing these words, Zhu Qingwen understood the two men's plan. She guessed that they had talked about this matter many times before tonight, and they should have a plan in mind. Wu Yajun asked worriedly, What about the old lady? Zhu Weiguo said seriously, We can only keep it a secret. Especially now, we can't let the old lady know. Zhu Qingwen nodded and said, I'll tell her about it. After talking about these things, Zhu Zhangshun and Zhu Qingwen drove away. Zhu Weiguo and Wu Yajun went to the hospital. They would stay there tonight. Zhu Weiguo had to go back to Beijing tomorrow, and Wu Yajun would stay in Shanghai. If anything happened to the old lady, he would definitely come back as soon as possible. No matter how special his identity was, in front of the old lady, he was just a son. He didn't sleep for the whole night. After a busy day, he only had a bowl of dumplings and steam buns. Besides, he had experienced those things just now. He dragged his exhausted body back home. He had called Lin Su in advance and would be back soon. So when he got home, Lin Su had already prepared the bathwater for him. After chatting with Lin Su for a while, he went to take a bath. He closed his eyes and thought about a lot of things. Compared to most of his peers, the first half of his life was very rough, and now he was under more pressure than his peers. However, there was no comfort in life. The only thing that could be obtained without sewing was poverty. So Qin Sheng never complained about it. He would only face all the difficulties calmly. This was the fighting spirit that a young man should have. Maybe one day, when Qin Sheng was tired and lost, he would choose to be mediocre and would be willing to be mediocre. But before that, he would only continue to go forward with determination. An hour passed. Lin Su thought that Qin Sheng should come out. However, after calling him a few times, he didn't move. Lin Su had to open the bathroom door. She didn't know when Qin Sheng had fallen asleep. Lin Su suddenly felt sad and her eyes turned red. She knew that many people might envy the current Qin Sheng. He was the son of the capital tycoon Qin Chang'an and the grandson of the Zhu family. He had such a prominent identity. However, how many people knew what Qin Sheng had experienced before? How many people knew the pressure that Qin Sheng had been under during this period? And how many people knew what Qin Sheng had to face? He was really too tired. Lin Su calmed down. After hesitating for a long time, she walked into the bathroom and woke Qin Sheng up. Qin Sheng opened his eyes in a daze and said with a smile, I fell asleep. Lin Su smiled warmly and said, Go to bed. When the sun rose, a new day began. Some people were leisurely, some were busy, some were confused, and some were struggling. They all lived in their own world. There were tens of millions of people in Shanghai, whose life and experience could attract everyone's attention. Qin Sheng, who was on his way to the hospital, inexplicably thought of a sentence in the ordinary world. People would rather care about the daily life of a lousy actor than understand the turbulent inner world of an ordinary person. But this was the way the world worked. If you wanted to challenge these rules, how much would you pay? When Qin Sheng arrived at the hospital, his uncle had already left Shanghai and returned to Beijing. He didn't say hello to the juniors. Qin Sheng could understand it. He didn't know when he would see his uncle again. In the hospital, his grandmother had already woken up. His aunt, who had stayed in Shanghai, was taking care of her. In addition, there was an unexpected woman, Song Ruyu. Qin Sheng was very surprised. Why was Song Ruyu here? At this time, Song Ruyu was chatting with his grandmother, who looked much better. After greeting his grandmother and aunt, Qin Sheng looked at Song Ruyu and asked, "Why are you here?" Song Ruyu said calmly, "I came to Shanghai on a business trip yesterday afternoon. I heard that my grandmother was in the hospital, so my grandfather asked me to come and see her for him." Qin Sheng said politely, "Oh, thank you." Song Ruyu was not used to Qin Sheng's politeness. She smiled awkwardly. The old lady had always liked Song Ruyu. Last time when Song Ruyu had come to Shanghai, she had asked Qin Sheng to accompany Song Ruyu to walk around. At this moment, she seemed to have noticed something. She said casually, "You young people can go and chat. Don't accompany me. Just let your aunt stay here." Qin Sheng didn't want to disturb his grandmother, so he said to Song Ruyu, "Let's go out for a walk." Song Ruyu nodded. After saying goodbye to the old lady and Wu Yajun, she slowly stood up and left the ward with Qin Sheng. The old lady sighed and said, "This girl from the Song family is very good. She's a good match for Sheng-er. It's a pity that he already has a girlfriend." Wu Yajun knew about this. She laughed and said, "Mom, don't worry about it. Let young people deal with their own affairs." Chapter 639. He was a hero. Ruijin Hospital was famous in the country and the best hospital in Shanghai. In addition to its medical conditions, its internal environment was also very good. After all, the rich Shanghai was always willing to spend money on hospital construction. Therefore, among the top 10 hospitals in the country, Shanghai was one of 4, and Ruijin Hospital was one of the top 5. There was a large area of greenery in the middle of Ruijin Hospital. Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu were strolling in the woods, surrounded by many patients and their family members who came out for a walk. Summer in the south was always sultry. Fortunately, there was no sun today, so it was cool. Qin Sheng was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, jeans, and sneakers, looking very casual. He could not wear a suit every day. If it were not for his special identity and he had to go to the company every day, he would be more willing to dress casually. Song Ruyu was wearing a light gray dress and a pair of simple white shoes. Her long hair was tied into a ponytail, as usual. Her bright eyes were so bright that no one dared to look her in the eye. They seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. They were so clean that they made others pale in comparison. "You have a girl's heart," Qin Sheng said half-jokingly when he saw a Hello Kitty on the hairband Song Ruyu was wearing. Song Ruyu seemed to be found smiling. She smiled embarrassedly and replied, "Do you mean I'm old?" Even a woman like Song Ruyu was no exception. Consequently, he replied in a hurry, "No, no, no. I've always thought that you were a girl. How could you be old?" "That's right. That's right. That's not right." Song Ruyu deliberately teased Qin Sheng. "Do you mean I'm not mature enough and not feminine enough?" Well, Qin Sheng was confused. He did not expect that Song Ruyu would say such a thing. For a moment, he did not know how to answer and could only stand there awkwardly. Song Ruyu was amused by Qin Sheng's expression. She covered her mouth and smiled. "I'm kidding. Look at how scared you are. Don't you think I should be like this?" Qin Sheng stared at Song Ruyu for a while and said honestly, "To be honest, you are a little different from usual." "Really?" Song Ruyu was amused. She had been changing herself recently, but she didn't know whether it was right or not. Anyway, she just followed her heart. Maybe she would change back when she felt it was no longer suitable for her. No one would force her to do so. The more Song Ruyu behaved like this, the weirder Qin Sheng felt. He asked, "What's wrong with you? Why do I feel that something is wrong?" Song Ruyu was afraid that Qin Sheng would discover her secret, so she said deliberately, "I'm just teasing you." I'm worried that you'll be in a bad mood because of Grandma's illness, so I want you to smile. Qin Sheng could accept this reason. He knew Song Ryu well. She seemed to be sincere to everyone. Of course, if she hated someone, Song Ryu would just keep him at a distance. Song Ryu returned to normal and asked, "Tell me about your life in Shanghai. Isn't Shanghai more interesting than Beijing? Beijing has too many restrictions, while Shanghai has more freedom. Otherwise, why would everyone go to Shanghai?" Qin Sheng didn't think so. He smiled and said, "I think it's the same everywhere. Maybe it's because of the environment you grew up in. For most ordinary people, big cities are the same. You're not an ordinary person, either." Song Ryu frowned. Sometimes she didn't like Qin Sheng's old-fashioned look, which seemed to lack the vigor of young people. Sometimes she thought it was good that he was more mature than most of his peers. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "If you think I'm not an ordinary person now, I can only say that at least I used to be an ordinary person." Song Ryu just wanted to chat casually, but she didn't expect that the topic would be so profound. She could only stretch and said, "Let's not talk about this. It's too boring. How many days will you stay in Shanghai?" Qin Sheng followed Song Ryu and asked. Song Ryu, on the other hand, was relaxed. If she met a beautiful child or a kind old man on the way, she would take the initiative to greet them. She believed that life should be like a blooming flower, and life should be like a flower that grew toward the sun, which was more interesting. Song Ryu walked at a moderate pace. Then she turned around and said, "I'll work for 2 days, but this time I'll have a 3-day holiday with friends. Every time I come to Shanghai, I'm in a hurry." "Oh, when you're not busy, I'll treat you to dinner," Qin Sheng said politely. Anyway, he was in Shanghai now, and he had to play the host. After all, the relationship between the Qin family and the Song family was obvious. Song Ryu was very considerate and said, "It's okay. You've been busy recently. I won't bother you. When you go back to Beijing, we'll meet again when we have time." Qin Sheng didn't insist. He was really busy recently. He was touched by Song Ryu's understanding. He smiled and said, "Let's talk about it later." Qin Sheng didn't talk with Song Ryu for a long time. After walking out of the woods, he sent Song Ryu out of the hospital. Originally, he had asked the driver to send Song Ryu, but Song Ryu insisted on taking a taxi. Qin Sheng didn't force her. After Song Ryu left, Qin Sheng returned to the ward where his grandmother was. At this time, several doctors were examining his grandmother. Qin Sheng accompanied his aunt outside and chatted. Wu Yajun joked, "Sheng, when will you let us see your girlfriend? You've been hiding her for so long. If you don't let us see her, we'll make a fool of ourselves." Qin Sheng originally planned to take Lin Su to see his grandmother, but his grandmother was suddenly hospitalized, so he had to postpone it. Hearing his aunt's words, Qin Sheng understood what was going on. The Song family and the Zhu family were old friends. If he didn't have a girlfriend, he might really do it. Qin Sheng smiled and said, "Aunt, when my grandmother gets better, I'll take her see you. In fact, small aunt and my sister have already met her." Wu Yajun said thoughtfully, "Oh, it seems that they have a good impression of your girlfriend. Otherwise, they would have mentioned it long ago." Qin Sheng said very sincerely, "She's good." After the doctor finished the examination, Qin Sheng said goodbye to his grandmother and aunt and left the hospital. He was ready to go to Shangshan, Ruoshui. Changbaji had come back and asked him to meet someone. On the other side, after Song Ryu left the hospital, she received a call from her best friend. Last time when she came to Shanghai, she didn't meet her best friend and was complained about for a long time by her best friend. This time, she told her best friend in advance, and they met last night. Her best friend, who was shopping in New World, asked, "Do you have any plans tonight?" Song Ryu shook her head and said, "No, why? What's the matter?" Her best friend explained, "If not, accompany me to a party tonight. I heard that he also came. I want to see him." Song Ryu originally wanted to refuse, but knowing the story between her best friend and that man, she sighed and said, "You still can't let it go. It's said that if you never forget, there will be an echo. Maybe?" Song Ryu's best friend said with a smile, but only she knew how bitter the joke was. Song Ryu had no choice but to agree. After all, she was her best friend. When Qin Sheng arrived at Shangshan Roashui, it was just lunchtime. Chang Baji was having lunch inside. Mizan, Yu Fengji, and the others were not there. Recently, they had been busy, so they might have gone out to deal with things. Seeing only Chang Baji, Qin Sheng was very surprised and said, "Lao Chang, where's the person you want me to meet?" Chang Baji put down his chopsticks and looked at the time, frowning. Normally, this guy should have arrived. I have called him and sent him the address. Why is he not here yet? Is it because he can't find the place? Qin Sheng was speechless. Where did Lao Chang find this person? Why did he want him to meet him? Before Lao Chang left, he said that he would go out to find help. Was this the helper he found? Was it reliable? Before Qin Sheng asked, Chang Baji made a phone call and said, "I'll call him again and see where he is." At this time, the security guard ran in and reported, "Uncle Chang, there's a migrant worker carrying luggage outside saying that he wants to see you. We don't know if you know him, so we came in to ask." "Migrant worker?" Chang Baji said in surprise. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. What was Lao Chang doing today? "I'll go out and have a look." Chang Baji guessed that it must be the martial nephew he had never seen before. Otherwise, there would not be people looking for him. So he hurriedly stood up and walked out. Qin Sheng was also curious about what kind of expert Chang Baji had found, so he followed him out. When they walked to the gate of Shangshan Roashui, they finally understood why the security guard called the guy in front of them a migrant worker. It was not that the security guard looked down on him, but that this guy was wearing too shabby clothes. He was also carrying a dirty woven bag in his hand. No one knew what was in it. His hair was messy. It was unknown how long it had been since he washed it. Some of it was stuck together. His skin was tanned, and no one knew how much dirt was hidden on it. What's more, it gave off a smell. He was wearing an old suit jacket that should have been old, with a few holes on it. The most amazing thing was the pair of sports shoes on his feet. Not to mention how dirty they were, 2 or 3 of his toes were exposed. Hero, this was a hero. Qin Sheng thought of what his classmates called street beggars when he was young. He felt that it was really polite for the security guard to call this guy a migrant worker. If not, he would probably be driven away. He estimated that if this guy appeared in a busy area at night, he might be directly sent to the shelter. Chang Baji and Qin Sheng looked at each other. They were both confused and did not know how to deal with it. Chang Baji was thinking, is this really the disciple that senior brother is most proud of? This is too ridiculous. Qin Sheng was thinking, is this the external help that Chang Baji invited? It is impossible, right? However, this hero did not let Qin Sheng and Chang Baji down. After seeing them coming out, it should be the moment when he saw Chang Baji, this guy suddenly burst into a very bright smile, showing some dazzling and strange big white teeth. At the same time, he threw away the dirty woven bag in his hand and used all his strength to call Chang Baji a martial uncle. Then, they only saw him galloping over like a wild horse. At the same time, he opened his arms, obviously wanting to hug Chang Baji. What about Chang Baji? Chapter 640. How strange life, even the security guards at the entrance could not stand it anymore, let alone Qin Sheng. They did not know why Chang Baji had such relatives and friends. This was the intersection of 2 different worlds. Qin Sheng and Chang Baji could not bear to watch this scene any longer. If it was an ordinary person, he would not be able to dodge it, because this man was too fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Chang Baji. The others were still in a state of confusion, and the security guards could not stop him. Chang Baji was a little panicked at the beginning. How could he not? He had not figured out what was going on, and he was about to be embraced by this man, who was dressed like a hero of the beggar sect. Most importantly, he was not sure of his identity. But in the next second, Chang Baji was calm in the face of danger. Since this hero claimed to be his nephew, which meant that he was the most outstanding disciple of his senior brother, he must be good at martial arts. Since that was the case, Chang Baji decided to test whether it was true or not. So when this hero was about to rush in front of Chang Baji suddenly made a move without any warning. He kicked the man. The man did not expect such a scene. His speed was too fast, and he could not stop at all. Everyone thought that this kick would definitely send the man flying, but the man suddenly flew up in the air with the help of inertia. He spun in the air and dodged Changbaji's kick. After landing, he followed the momentum and rolled, and then stood up happily. After getting up, the man looked at Changbaji and asked, "Uncle, what do you mean by this?" Changbaji was not polite to him. "Aren't you my nephew? Then let's see how good your martial arts are." So Changbaji did not just let it go. He took advantage of the situation and came in front of the man again. He slashed at the man's chest with the 8 trigrams palm. The man seemed to understand what Changbaji meant. He laughed out loud and went up to Changbaji without any fear. He easily blocked Changbaji's attack. Then, the two of them went back and forth. They did not defend each other at all. They just kept attacking to see who could suppress the other. Changbaji had always liked to attack. He liked to use his strength to suppress his opponents. Unexpectedly, this martial nephew of his was also the same. When he attacked Changbaji, he did not fear Changbaji's attack at all. Qin Sheng was very clear about Changbaji's strength. At least, he was no match for him. However, the man in tattered clothes in front of him did not seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Moreover, Qin Sheng was sure that Changbaji did not hide his strength at all. This was very interesting. Qin Sheng recognized this man's strength, so he no longer paid attention to his other things. He also confirmed this man's identity. After all, everything depended on strength. As for those security guards with even worse skills, they were enjoying the battle as if they were watching a movie. They cheered loudly, but they didn't have the strength to do so. Finally, Changbaji felt that it was about time. With a fierce move, he forced back the martial nephew whose identity had been confirmed. The man seemed to understand what was going on. He took a few steps back and put some distance between himself and Changbaji. After the two of them separated, the man revealed his big white teeth and laughed. "Martial uncle is indeed a martial uncle. Awesome, awesome. No wonder my master said that among the few disciples of the elder ancestor, you have the highest attainment in martial arts." The strength that the man had shown was totally different from his current appearance. Qin Sheng did not know whether it was intentional or there were other problems. Changbaji scolded angrily. "Yang Dainyu, how did you end up like this? You really made your master lose face. I really thought you were a migrant worker." Yang Dainyu. Hearing this name, Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. This name really matched this man's temperament. He did not know who gave him this nickname or if it was his real name. Yang Dainyu scratched his ears and cheeks as he said, "Martial uncle, don't mention it. If I tell you about it, I'll cry and snot. I'll tell you about it when I'm free in the future. Let me take a shower and change my clothes first. Also, let me have a haircut. Otherwise, I'm going to despise me." Changbaji looked at Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng did not have any opinion. It was up to Changbaji to make the decision. Therefore, Changbaji let this martial nephew take a bath and change his clothes first before having a haircut. He was not in a hurry to introduce him to Qin Sheng. It was not too late to wait for a while. Changbaji and Qin Sheng returned to Shangshan Ruoshui and waited for Yang Dainyu in the dining room. Before Qin Sheng took the initiative to ask, Changbaji said directly, "The man just now is also my senior brother's disciple, but I have never seen him before. These years, he has been traveling outside. I don't know what he is doing, but his strength is not a problem. He is the most powerful disciple that my senior brother has ever taught." Qin Sheng's guess was almost right. He frowned and said, "So you mean Gu Xiaobo definitely knows him? I think they know each other. After all, they are from the same sect. It's just that they may not have met each other many times." According to what my senior brother said, Gu Xiaobo was only accepted as his disciple when Yang Dainyu left the mountain to travel. Their ages are only 10 years apart, Changbaji said truthfully. Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, "In fact, it is not important." Changbaji laughed and said, "However, his strength is definitely above Gu Xiaobo. Just now, I almost used all my strength, but he could do it perfectly. Maybe he is still hiding his strength. My senior brother did not cheat me this time. This time, I can let him get rid of the evil for the sect." Qin Sheng squinted and said, "Then let him practice on Gu Xiaobo first." Gu Xiaobo has been free and unfettered for so long. It is time to pay the price. Hao Lei has found Gu Xiaobo and is looking for a chance. Once there is a chance, I will let Yang Dania do it, Chang Baji said firmly. Qin Sheng was neither sad nor happy. These were all what Gu Xiaobo asked for. Maybe he did not expect the ending would be like this. At that time, he would have a good talk with Gu Xiaobo. In a residential area in Jing and Shanghai, Gu Xiaobo just drove his Land Rover into the street outside. Hao Lei and Tang, she witnessed all this. Gu Xiaobo was really difficult for them to find, even more difficult than Yin Xiaozong. Unfortunately, Yin Xiaozong had never seen Gu Xiaobo during this period. Damn, I finally found you. Tang, she cursed. This bastard, who used to be brothers with them, finally betrayed them. He broke everyone's heart. Hao Lei reminded him, don't act rashly. After discussing with Uncle Chong and the others, we will choose when to do it. Brother Lei, don't worry. I know. Tang, she replied in a low voice, staring at the gate of the residential area. About half an hour later, Gu Xiaobo walked out of the residential area. This time, he did not drive, but walked out. Of course, he was not alone. There was a cute and helpless beauty beside him. The beauty was wearing a loose maternity dress and holding Gu Xiaobo's arm tightly. It seemed that she was very happy. Tang, she cursed, hiding a mistress in a golden house. When Tang, she was about to drive the car and follow them, Hao Lei reminded him, there is no need to follow them. Be careful not to alert the enemy. He will definitely come back later. We can wait here. Brother Lei, you are right. Tang, she laughed. However, he was a little anxious. After looking at the beauty for a while, he frowned and said, Brother Lei, why do I feel that the beauty is a little familiar? Hao Lei smiled faintly and said, you just recognized her? She used to be a platform girl from Poly International. She followed Gu Xiaobo in the end. Gu Xiaobo also betrayed us because of this woman. Upon hearing this, Tang, she felt that Gu Xiaobo was really King Heartless. He cursed, is it worth it? Hao Lei said disapprovingly, it is not up to you to decide whether it is worth it or not. It is up to her. Moreover, things have come to this point. Why are you still asking whether it is worth it or not? What's the point? Tang, she did not intend to let it go. He gritted his teeth and said, when he falls into our hands, I will definitely ask him whether it is worth it or not. On the other side, Gu Xiaobo was lowering his head and gently asking the woman in his arms whether the child had kicked her or not. Occasionally, he would touch the woman's belly, as if everything outside was not important at this moment. Everyone had their own choices. However, no matter what kind of choices they made and what kind of flowers and fruits they produced, they had to bear the consequences, good or bad. The woman pouted and said coquettishly, why are you so busy recently? You have less and less time to accompany me. I'm not happy. To be honest, she was quite beautiful. She looked a bit like the starling Yen. Besides, she had a good character and knew how to act coquettishly. Therefore, she had captured the heart of Gu Xiaobo, who was inexperienced in life. If it were not for her family's circumstances, she would not have gone to work there. She might not have met Gu Xiaobo, and naturally, Gu Xiaobo's fate would not have been changed. You see, life is so strange. Two people who had nothing to do with each other had met each other in such a way. From then on, their lives have been changed. Gu Xiaobo blamed himself a little as he said, I have been busy recently. When I finish my work, I will accompany you. Don't be angry. Be careful not to hurt the fetus. Now the world is big, and you are the most important. The woman muttered, Humph, you are such a sweet talker. Gu Xiaobo knew how to coax women. He said happily, didn't you like a bag? I will go to Hunglong tomorrow and buy it for you. Really? The woman was very happy to hear this. That bag cost tens of thousands of yuan. Her friend just bought it. She was a little envious, but she did not dare to buy it. Because she knew that Gu Xiaobo really loved her, he was not willing to spend money recklessly. If a woman really liked a man, she would definitely think about this man in all aspects. It was not easy for a man to live outside. If a woman did not understand, their relationship would not last. Gu Xiaobo said affirmatively, why would I lie to you? The woman thought for a while and refused. Forget it. It's too expensive. We need to save money for the baby's milk powder. Gu Xiaobo did not say anything. He still had to spend money. Besides, he was afraid that he would not have a chance to spend it in the future. At the same time, in the W Hotel on the Bund, Yin Chaozong was chatting with several rich playboys from Suzhou City, including Shui Ku, who was in charge of the overall situation in Shanghai, and Gu Yongning, who had just arrived in Shanghai. Shui Ku, who had just finished a task, said proudly, "Lao Yin, I heard that you were targeted at a party last time. You lost face. Come with us tonight, and we will help you get back your face." Yin Chaozong was going back to Xishan at night. Tonight, his grandfather and his second uncle had something to talk to him about. So he smiled and said, "It's all in the past. I won't go tonight. You guys have fun." Shueiko was surprised and said, "You really won't go?" Yin Chaozong shook his head. Gu Yongning said casually, "Lao Yin doesn't want to go. Don't force him. We will go for a walk. We will come to Shanghai many times in the future." Chapter 641. Enough Shueiko knew how to get along with Yin Chaozong. No matter how much they called each other brother, the most important thing was to give him enough respect. These hedonistic playboys who had stayed in Suzhou City for too long had always been domineering and arrogant. In Shanghai, they could be considered to have restrained themselves. If they went to other places, these hedonistic playboys who were too embarrassed to greet their elders when they went out would definitely not take other people seriously. After all, they were used to the world and were used to the flattery of others. Yin Chaozong knew how to deal with Shui, Ku, and the others. Regardless of the difference in status, the more humble you were, the less they would take you seriously. If you were neither servile nor overbearing, they would treat you as a friend. After Yin Chaozong left in a hurry, only Shui Ku, Gu Yongning, and the others were left in the suite. The other two were Su Bin and Gao Shi, who followed Shui Ku to Shanghai this time. Su Bin and Gu Yongning were familiar with each other. They used to play outside. Gu Yongning had always been very generous, while they were too restrained by their families and were very careful when it came to spending money. As for whether their families were rich or not, no one knew. After all, whoever was high profile was courting death, so Gu Yongning filled the gap. Power was a double-edged sword. It was obviously impossible to have everything. If you wanted to be an official and earn money, there was only one end. The Gu family took the same route as the Qin family. Although the family members had basically retired from the official career, and even if they did not, they were just officials in a government office, their influence in the business world was not small. That was why they had so many conflicts with the Qin family. The most profitable cake was only so much, and only a few people were qualified to eat it. No one was willing to share it, so someone had to be eliminated. The Gu family had been tricked by the Qin family several times. The matter with Gu Yongning's uncle was not small, and in the end, he was forced to commit suicide. Shui Ku and Su Bin's families had power and resources, while the Gu family had money and could do things. Naturally, both sides took what they needed, so Gu Yongning's position in this circle was still very stable. Shueika laughed. "Old Gu, with you here, we're like tigers that have grown wings. Your family has a lot of resources in Shanghai. When the time comes, we need you to do a lot of things." "Didn't I come to Shanghai for this matter?" Gu Yongning said with a faint smile. This time, he was ordered to come here to ruin all of Qin Sheng's plans in Shanghai. Su Bin did not doubt Gu Yongning's ability, and of course, he did not doubt the Gu family's strength. Gao Shi and Gu Yongning were not familiar, and the Gu family was in charge of publicity. Shueiko asked Gao Shi to come because he could help. Shueiko thought for a moment and said, "The thing we talked about on the phone has basically been finalized. Brother Zhou has agreed to help, but we have to give that man the same treatment as him. So it's a little troublesome. It's not easy to find such a position. Do you have any ideas?" Gu Yongning had already thought of a countermeasure for this matter, which had also been approved by his family. He said naturally, if he is willing, he can come to the investment company under our family group to be the president. If he is not willing, there is a position in Pudong Development Bank that can be given to him. It depends on his consideration. Su Bin said with a smile, "Old Gu, although your family's location is the best, he definitely won't go there. Your two families are sworn enemies. If he goes to your family, isn't it equivalent to slapping the Qin family in the face? Do you think he dares to offend the Qin family? It's completely unnecessary. Shueika echoed. Subin is right. So the Pudong Development Bank's position is the most suitable. You have to settle this matter. There can't be any mistakes. Gu Yoning said lightly. Basically, there is no problem. I'll call again to confirm. Shueika laughed. I trust you. We have been brothers for so many years. What have we not done? Gu Yoning smiled and said nothing. His relationship with Shueika was quite complicated. They were true friends mixed with interests, but interests were more important than friends. Shueika looked at Su Bin and Gao Shi and said, let's not talk about this. Let's have a few drinks tonight. There will be many beauties. Don't be mistaken. Su Bin was not very interested in beauties. Gao Shi and Shueika were jackals of the same lair. This was also the reason why they hooked him up this time. The party at night was also set up by Shueika. Of course, there were others. Originally, he wanted to help Yin Chaozong win some face. Since Yin Chaozong was not interested, he did not force it. In Shangshan Ruoshui, Qin Sheng, who did not go to the company, was still busy. First, he made a phone call to confirm some things in Hangzhou. He also gave Wei Li some reassurance. He could not go for a while. Many things needed Wei Li to deal with. If Wei Li got out of the car, it would be difficult for him. In Shanghai, Lao Chong was reporting some news to Qin Sheng, such as Third Master Wu's movements these days. To Qin Sheng's surprise, it was Yang Deng who followed Third Master Wu to Shanghai. Qin Sheng was lost in thought at that moment. Of course, Chang Baji knew what Qin Sheng was thinking. He smiled and said, I don't know how to meet Yang Deng. You won't believe me even if I say no. You know Yang Deng's temper. If I really want to hurt Third Master Wu, he will definitely try his best to protect him. Then what should I do? I have always suspected that the last message in Hangzhou was sent by Yang Deng. It seems that he is the only one who can leak the secret. He saved my life. I can't bite the hand that feeds me, right? Qin Sheng said truthfully. This was indeed a headache. Chang Baji sighed and said, You are right. We definitely have to get rid of Third Master Wu. But we can't do anything to Yang Deng. Moreover, we have to worry that if we really kill Third Master Wu, Yang Deng will take revenge on us. Qin Sheng directly lay on the sofa and closed his eyes. He said, I don't want to think about it. Let's take one step at a time. They waited for nearly 2 hours. Finally, Yang Daniu appeared in front of everyone again. This time, he did not scare Qin Sheng and Chang Baji. He looked normal. His skin was still as dark as box, but he was much cleaner. This sportswear also suited him very well. He looked strong, but his smile was really wretched. After Yang Daniu came in, he walked to Chang Baji with a cheeky smile. He wanted to protect Chang Baji again. This time, Chang Baji did not refuse and let him do whatever he wanted. Yang Daniu said happily, Senior uncle, I finally met you. The other junior brothers told me about you several times. I also heard Master mention you often, but I have never met you. This time, as soon as Master called, I came here immediately. Otherwise, I was afraid that I would not have the chance to meet you. Chang Baji was calm and composed. However, Yang Daniu continued, Well, senior uncle, you are much more handsome than I imagined. Your temperament is also very outstanding. You can definitely be found in the crowd at first sight. Just now, when I saw you, I knew you were my senior uncle. In addition, you are very skilled in martial arts. TSK, TSK, TSK. How can I, Yang Daniu, have such a senior uncle? I'm really lucky. Qin Sheng was about to throw up. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such a shameless person. He did not even blush when he flattered others. Moreover, he could say so much. Qin Sheng could still bear it, but Chang Baji could not. He did not expect that senior brother would actually send such a silly martial nephew. He had already killed so many people in seconds, and now he wanted to continue to make trouble. Chang Baji directly stopped him and said, That's enough. Yang Daniu pretended to be stunned. He stared at Chang Baji for a while, then touched his head and said, Senior uncle, what's wrong? Did I say something unpleasant? Oh, I am stupid. My master always scolds me. After so many years, I am still stupid. Senior uncle, what do you think? Qin Sheng directly stood up and said, Lao Chong, I can't stand it anymore. You should teach him well first. I feel that you have brought back Tang Sung. Yang Daniu pulled Qin Sheng and said, Boss, don't go. We haven't met yet. You must be my senior uncle's good friend. My name is Yang Daniu. My father gave me this name. It is vulgar, but it sounds good. Chong Baji said with a gloomy face, If you say one more word, I will break one of your legs. Yang Daniu felt that Chong Baji was really angry, so he shut up obediently. However, he did not forget to mutter in his heart, Senior uncle, I really want to have a good fight with you. You may not be able to defeat me. It was not until then that Qin Sheng came back to his senses. He took a look at Yang Daniu and sighed deeply. This guy was really funny. He really did not know how he had survived until now. Oh, what the hell? This guy was good at fighting. Others could not defeat him. He was King invincible. Chong Baji said very seriously. This time, senior brother asked you to come to Shanghai. In addition to cleaning up the traitor for the sect, the other thing is to protect him. Speaking of Gu Xiaobo, Yang Daniu was very angry. His favorite junior brother was Gu Qingyang. Gu Xiaobo had actually killed him. How could he forgive Gu Xiaobo? Consequently, Yang Daniu said fiercely, Senior uncle, don't worry. Just leave Gu Xiaobo to me. I will definitely make him suffer. After saying this, Yang Daniu immediately changed his tone and said, However, senior uncle, you asked me to protect him. How can I protect him? Can you drive? Chong Baji asked. He had a lot of things to do, so he had to arrange a reliable bodyguard for Qin Sheng. Yang Daniu said proudly, Of course, senior uncle. I'm not bragging. I have competed with a professional racer. Although I lost in the end, it was only because of the gap of a curve. Alas, don't mention it. Otherwise, I can brag for many years. Once this guy opened his mouth, it seemed that he could not stop talking. Chong Baji immediately changed his face, so Yang Daniu immediately shut up. Thinking that he would be with this guy every day, Qin Sheng really had a headache. He really wanted to ask Chong Baji whether he could change someone else for him. Chong Baji continued, Since you can drive, you could be Boss Qin's driver and bodyguard in the future. Anyway, wherever he is, you will be there. Listen to his arrangements. Don't worry, senior uncle. I promise to complete the task. Yang Daniu stood straight and saluted seriously and foolishly. This scene was really funny. Chong Baji looked at Qin Sheng and said, Lao Qin, what do you want to say? Qin Sheng took the initiative to walk over. He stretched out his hand and said with a smile, My name is Qin Sheng. Thank you in the future. Yang Daniu laughed mischievously and said, As long as I can eat my fill. I like to eat meat. Beef, mutton, fish, I love them all. Before Yang Daniu finished his words, Qin Sheng directly replied, You can eat your fill. Yang Daniu beamed with joy. At this moment, Qin Sheng's phone rang. Seeing that it was Bao Fan, Qin Sheng asked Chong Baji to chat with Yang Daniu first, while he answered Bao Fan's call. Chapter 642. Wait for me. After spending so much time with Qin Sheng, Chong Baji knew him very well. Something big must have happened to make Qin Sheng like this. Otherwise, Qin Sheng would not be so gloomy. Could it be that something had happened to the Qin family in Beijing? Yang Daniu did not know what had happened. However, he had traveled all over the world for so many years and had experienced all kinds of things. He could obviously feel that Qin Sheng was different from just now. Yang Daniu subconsciously looked at Chong Baji and asked with his eyes, Martial uncle, what's going on? After Qin Sheng hung up the phone, he lowered his head and fell in a deep thought. This matter was indeed a bit tricky. He did not expect that the thing he was most worried about would eventually happen. If the two groups of people got together, there would definitely be more variables. He had to make more countermeasures on his side. Chong Baji walked over slowly and asked what happened. Qin Sheng, who came back to his senses, looked up at Chong Baji and explained honestly, Brother Bao called me to tell me that Xue Ku and the rest have already met with Yin Chaozong. What we were most worried about has happened. Chong Baji's expression changed instantly. No wonder Qin Sheng looked like this. This was what they were most worried about. However, They did not expect that his words would come true and it would happen so soon. Yin Chaozong and Shui Ke had known each other for a long time, not to mention that they had been visiting each other frequently recently. It was just that Qin Sheng and the others did not know about it before. After Bao Fan took charge of this matter, he got the exact news and informed Qin Sheng immediately so that Qin Sheng could be prepared. Chang Baji was silent for a moment before he said, "It's a little tricky. If the two sides join hands, Yin Chaozong and his group will not admit defeat easily. Shui Ku and his group may also want to kill them with a borrowed knife. After all, Yin Chaozong and his group are the local tyrants. They will each take what they need and benefit from it." Qin Sheng said, "We still have to give this matter further thought. You can continue with the original plan first. If there are any changes, I will contact you at any time." This was because he could not predict the possible consequences of this matter, but it was definitely not a good thing. He had to think carefully about what to do next. Today, his sister came back from Hong Kong to Shanghai to visit her grandmother. She should have already arrived at Ruijin Hospital. Qin Sheng wanted to pick her up, but Qin Ran did not let him run around, so he sent bodyguards to pick her up. Shanshan Ruashui was not far from Ruijin Hospital. After Qin Sheng greeted Chang Baji, he was ready to leave. However, Chang Baji told Qin Sheng that he would let Yang Dainyu work as a driver today. He wanted him to get used to it first. If he did not like this job, he would discuss about letting him do something else. Originally, Qin Sheng had wanted to let Chang Baji settle Yang Dainyu down first. After all, where would he stay and what daily necessities he needed to buy? However, Chang Baji said that he would stay with him first. Anyway, with his burly appearance, it would be the same wherever he stayed. Yang Dainyu did not have any opinions. Everything would be decided by Chang Baji, his martial uncle. As a result, Yang Dainyu, who had just arrived in Shanghai for a few hours, went to work directly. When he saw Qin Sheng's car, Yang Dainyu said with a cheeky smile that he had never driven such a good car before. In the past, he had driven Wuling Hongguang or Bic Weiwang. Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed. He really wanted to say, "Brother, you were so direct." But it was understandable. Everyone had their first time, so he told Dainyu to drive casually. It would be fine even if there were some scratches. Yang Dainyu was eager to try. He got in the car and started it. The bodyguard in the passenger seat gave him a detailed introduction. Then Dainyu knew how to drive. He was driving anyway. Fortunately, Yang Dainyu's driving skills were good. He made good use of the time and saved Qin Sheng a lot of time. Qin Sheng believed that Yang Dainyu had competed with professional racers before, but he was not too presumptuous. After all, he knew how to control himself. After parking the car, Qin Sheng asked Yang Dainyu and another bodyguard to follow him to the ward. On the way there, Qin Sheng said casually, "Dainyu, you can do whatever you want in front of me and Lao Chang. You are Lao Chang's nephew, so you're my friend. But be careful in front of others. Just look and don't say anything." Qin Sheng did not want to say this. After all, he was afraid of hurting Dainyu's self-esteem. But he had to say it because his social circle was different. Yang Dainyu nodded seriously and said, "Boss, don't worry. I understand. I won't embarrass senior uncle." Qin Sheng patted Dainyu's shoulder gently and said, "Don't think too much." When Qin Sheng arrived at the ward, he did not expect to see so many people. His cousin, Zhu Jiao, his cousin, Zhu Yi, and her husband were all there. His sister, Qin Ran, was chatting with Grandma inside. His aunt and small aunt were also there. Zhu Jiao saw Qin Sheng walking over. He hurried over and said, "Cousin, I was about to call you." After greeting his cousin and her husband, Qin Sheng asked, "Is my sister here?" "She is inside," Zhu Jiao said, pointing at the ward. After Qin Sheng walked in, Qin Ran raised her head and looked at him. She smiled and said nothing. Qin Sheng came out after greeting them. He asked his sister to chat with Grandma more. After a while, Qin Ran walked out of the ward and said, "Grandma needs to rest. Small aunt and aunt stay here. Let's go. You haven't had dinner yet. Let's go home and have dinner first." Zhu Qingwen had asked the nanny to prepare dinner. Tonight, These children would have dinner at home. She and Wu Yajun would stay in the hospital. Anyway, this was the ICU of Ruijin Hospital. There would be doctors and nurses on duty 24 hours a day. There were also family members' rooms next door. There would be no accidents. Qin Ran left with the juniors of the Zhu family. Dinner was finished soon. These juniors had not gathered together for a long time. Moreover, tomorrow was Saturday. Zhu Yi and her husband did not go to work, so they chatted in the living room. Zhu Jiao was a talkative person. He talked about some trivial things and experiences in school. Qin Ran and Zhu Yi often refuted him. Anyway, he was not angry at them. He just meant that they could do whatever they wanted. Zhu Yi's husband was a man of few words. He was a researcher in a military enterprise. The path he took was different from many people. His father was a leading expert in a certain field in the country. His mother was also a retired professor of Shanghai Jiaotong University. At that time, the Zhu family agreed to this marriage. In addition to the special family background of Zhu Yi's husband, the most important thing was that this man had a pure heart. He did not seek fame or wealth. He just wanted to serve his country and go further in his field of research. Qin Sheng liked this cousin-in-law very much. When he talked about research, you could see his eyes shining. This was something that many people in today's society lacked. When it was almost time, Zhu Yi and her husband left with Zhu Jiao. After all, there were children at home, and they could not go back too late. After Qin Sheng and Qin Ran saw them off, they sat in the living room and continued to chat. Qin Ran would stay here tonight, and Qin Sheng definitely had to go back at night. Sister, have you finished the business in Hong Kong? Qin Sheng asked casually. Qin Ran nodded with a smile and said, almost done. I have handed over the remaining finishing work to others. How's it going in Shanghai? Have you made any progress? You're under a lot of pressure this time. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Sister, why didn't you tell me when I came to Shanghai? It's not that I didn't want to tell you, but the old man didn't let me. He said that you would understand by yourself, and it would be meaningless to tell you in advance. Qin Ran covered her mouth and smiled. Qin Sheng suddenly felt sad. Sister, if I can't do it well, will I disappoint a lot of people? Qin Ran touched Qin Sheng's head and said, silly brother, don't say such discouraging words. The old man won't be disappointed, and neither will I. You're still my brother. It has nothing to do with others. Although Qin Ran said so, Qin Sheng was very clear that they naturally hoped that he could complete this challenge, so that many people could shut their mouths. Otherwise, there would be more resistance in the future. Qin Sheng did not say anything more on this matter. He only needed to do it. No matter what others thought of him, he would finish it. Qin Sheng changed the topic. Sister, how many days will you stay in Shanghai this time? I will go back to Beijing tomorrow afternoon. Sister, I have been promoted now, and there is still a lot of work waiting for me to deal with, Qin Ran said with a smile. Qin Sheng was a little surprised. It seemed that no one had told him about this. He frowned and said, why didn't I know? It doesn't matter whether you know about these trivial things or not. Anyway, it's all work, and I'm used to it, Qin Ran said disapprovingly. Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said, Sister, wait for me. When I make them satisfied, you won't be so tired. Qin Ran's eyes turned red. This silly brother was as silly as ever, and he was like this when they were young. He always stood by her side, no matter whether she was right or wrong. He only recognized her as his sister. Although they had been separated for more than 20 years, now that they were back, he was still the same as before. He always cared about her, as if some things were in his bones. No matter time and distance, they could not be changed. This made her feel that she had not waited for more than 20 years in vain. In fact, what Qin Ran did not tell Qin Sheng was that her job adjustment this time was not arranged by Qin Chang'an, but she asked for it. This was similar to what she had done in the past half a year. No matter how difficult the work was, she dared to face it. If it was in the past, she would not care about these things. Even if the Chang'an department collapsed tomorrow, she would not blink. That was Qin Chang'an's business, and she would not worry about it. But now it was different. Now that Qin Sheng was back, and he would take over in the future, it was okay for her to be a little tired. In this way, Qin Sheng's pressure would be less, and it would be easier to take over. Sister and brother. God knew how many generations of fate they had cultivated together. How could they not care about each other? After talking about these trivial things, Qin Ran asked Qin Sheng to go back and rest early. She knew that Qin Sheng had been very busy recently, and he definitely had no time to accompany Lin Su because of his grandmother's hospitalization. No matter whether they could be together in the future, when they were together, they should cherish each other and care about each other's feelings. This was the original way love should be. Originally, Qin Sheng wanted to ask about the old man, but he felt that his sister was a little tired, so he did not ask further and asked her to rest early. After coming out of the foreign-style house, Qin Sheng asked Yang Daniyu and the bodyguards to send him home. When the two cars arrived at Lujiazui, Qin Sheng received a call from Song Ruyu. Song Ruyu called him so late, which made Qin Sheng very confused. Did something happen? Qin Sheng answered the phone. After listening to what Song Ruyu said, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that Song Ruyu's best friend drank too much, and she did not know how to deal with it. She was not familiar with other people in Shanghai, so she could only ask Qin Sheng for help. Chapter 643. What a coincidence. Anyway, Song Ruyu called Qin Sheng at this time, which meant that she trusted him very much. Moreover, she really couldn't think of anyone to ask for help. She didn't have many friends, not to mention that this was Shanghai. Song Ruyu had intended to call her bestie's family, but her bestie had thrown her phone into the Huangpu River. She thought about it and decided that it would be inappropriate to call her bestie's family since she was so drunk. She might be scolded by her bestie's parents. On the Huangpu River, a yacht was about to dock. The party on the yacht was coming to an end. Those who could attend the party were rich playboys from Suzhou City. Of course, there were also many rich playboys from Shanghai. Each of them had a powerful background, and each of them had a huge network of interest behind their backs. There were a few of the most eye-catching stars at tonight's party. One of them was the main organizer of the party, Xue Ke. He was surrounded by the crowd, drinking and chatting happily. The other was a famous playboy from Beijing who lived in Shanghai. However, he did not belong to the same circle as Xue Ke. He came because he was a friend. Many people surrounded them. Xue Ke didn't expect that he would come, but he didn't say much. They didn't have much contact, and he was older than him. After greeting each other and drinking, they went about their own business. The last one was an unexpected beauty. She was Song Ruyu, the daughter of the Song family, who was famous in Suzhou City. She was much more famous than Xue Ke. No one expected that Song Ruyu would be in Shanghai, nor did they expect that she would suddenly attend this party. Why was Song Ruyu so famous? First of all, the Song family's background was obvious. Song Ruyu's grandfather was a senior leader. Second, Song Husheng, Song Ruyu's brother, was even more famous. He was regarded as the role model and core figure of the young generation in Suzhou City. Of course, this was because Song Ruyu kept a low profile. Finally, only a few people knew that Song Ruyu's teacher was the nation scholar. This was the most terrifying part. Who was the nation scholar? It was rare to find someone who could be called a state knight in the entire country, not to mention that he had experienced 3 generations of leaders. Many of the people present knew Song Ruyu, but Song Ruyu definitely did not know them. Some of them wanted to make friends with Song Ruyu and recognize her. Moreover, everyone knew that Song Ruyu was still single, including Xue Ke's group. However, after the 2 groups of people who had taken a lead were rejected, the rest of the people did not try to make a good impression on Song Ruyu. Song Ruyu's bestie was called Jiang Lin. She was Song Ruyu's classmate in college. Jiang Lin's family was average in Suzhou City. The reason why Jiang Lin could become Song Ruyu's bestie was that she was a very simple and pure girl. She was not as scheming as other girls, nor was she as vain as other girls. In college, Song Ruyu and Jiang Lin had many common hobbies. For example, they both liked reading, so they often went to the library. If they liked interesting handicrafts, they would go to the folk village to learn them. If they liked folk musical instruments, they would learn them together. After graduating from college, Song Ruyu stayed in Beijing for her postgraduate studies, while Jianglin went to Shanghai for her postgraduate studies. The two of them had less and less contact, but they chatted and called each other almost every day. Later, Song Ryu became a scholar, while Jianglin stayed in Shanghai to work. After all, her family still had some influence in Shanghai, but it was still far from the Song families. Jianglin had a crush on a senior in college, who was also on the yacht today. Her friend secretly told her about it, so Jianglin sneaked over and took Song Ryu with her. Jianglin had confessed to the senior several times, but he had rejected her every time. To be honest, although Jianglin had a good temperament, her appearance could only be considered ordinary. Moreover, her family background was indeed not good enough for the senior. However, for a very simple girl like Jianglin, love was just a matter of liking someone. It had nothing to do with other things. For the senior, love was just an accessory to life. Therefore, today, Jianglin was hurt again. She was hurt not because she had been rejected, but because she had been ridiculed by the senior and his friends. Jianglin, who was drunk, cried and said, Am I very stupid?" Her delicate makeup had been ruined, but she did not care about these things at this time. Song Ryu supported Jianglin, who had vomited several times, and said, "You are not stupid at all. They're the stupid ones. Lin, he is not good enough for you. I know you are comforting me. I understand. Can you scold me a few times to sober me up?" Jianglin said in a daze. Song Ryu was somewhat distressed. She could only support Jianglin and comfort her. At the same time, she held water in her hand to help her sober up. Now, she only hoped that the yacht would dock as soon as possible and send Jianglin to rest. Only when she fell asleep would she not think about anything else. When she woke up, it would be a new day. On the other side of the yacht, the men and women here were drinking and chatting merrily. Shueka had a female companion in his arms, and Gaoshi had already hooked up with a model, while Gu Yongning and Su Bin were clean. Shueka looked at Song Ryu and Jianglin and said, "Old Gu, this time you have offended the eldest daughter of the Song family. In the future, she may make things difficult for you. Song Hushing is not someone we can afford to offend." Gu Yongning was having a headache. He had been annoyed by this woman for several years. Who would have thought that he would meet her again this time? He did not expect that she would be Song Ryu's friend. This time, he was in trouble. Gaoshi was also having a headache. It was Song Ryu who had humiliated Jianglin just now. When Song Ryu came over, she even said a few words to him, which made him so angry that he almost hit her. Fortunately, Su Bin stopped him at the critical moment. Otherwise, he would have been in big trouble. If he had hit Song Ryu, not to mention Song Hushing or the Song family, his father would definitely break one of his legs first and then ask the Song family to break the other. Therefore, Gaoshi said with lingering fear, "Bing, when we go back to Beijing, I have to ask you to be more corrupt. This time, thanks to you, I would have been in big trouble. As long as no one tells others about this, it will be fine. Song Ryu is not a petty, vulgar woman. Her realm is much higher than yours and mine," Gu Yongning said casually. However, in his heart, he was still thinking about how to save her. At least, he should apologize. Shueka smiled and said, "I hope so too. But there are many onlookers who don't mind making a big deal out of it. There are more than 1 or 2 people on the yacht who know Song Hushing. Who knows if someone will gossip? If Song Hushing finds out, you and Gao, she will be in trouble. What can I do? No matter how angry Song Hushing is, he will not fight with me to death. At most, he will gain some face, and I will accept it." Gu Yongning was quite free and easy. At this time, Shueka laughed and said, "Don't worry. It will not be so complicated. At most, he will say a few words to me. I will help you then." Gu Yongning smiled bitterly. Tonight could be considered unlucky with such an episode happening. The yacht finally docked. It was already late. The rich playboys on the yacht were ready to leave after saying goodbye. Song Ryu helped Jianglin get off the yacht. Qin Sheng had not arrived yet, so they could only wait by the roadside. Song Ryu wanted to call Qin Sheng and ask him how long it would take for him to arrive. However, she felt that it would be impolite to ask him for help at night. Some of Song Ryu's friends or acquaintances with Song Hushing offered to send Song Ryu home, but Song Ryu politely declined, saying that her friends would arrive soon. The others didn't insist and left after saying goodbye to Song Ryu. After Xue Ku and Gu Yongning's cars came out, they saw Song Ryu and Jiang Lin still by the roadside. After thinking for a while, Gu Yongning decided to stop the car. Of course, Xue Ku knew what was going on. He laughed and said, "Mend the pen after the sheep is lost. Aren't you afraid of making an unnecessary move?" "I don't care so much. I will make up for it as much as I can," Gu Yongning said. Xue Ku thought about it and did not stop Gu Yongning. He asked the female companion to stay in the car. He and Gu Yongning took the initiative to get off the car. Su Bin and Gao Shi, who were behind them, also got off. When several men got off the car and walked toward Song Ryu and Jiang Lin, Song Ryu thought that they were her brother's friends. She did not expect that they were the initiators who had made Jiang Lin drunk. Song Ryu was very sincere to her friends and approachable to strangers. However, she really disliked those she did not like and hated those she hated even more. When Xue Ku and Gu Yongning approached, Song Ryu said directly, "What are you doing here?" Gu Yongning said in a low voice, "Where do you live? I will send you back. Anyway, it was my fault tonight. I should not have treated Jiang Lin like that. I'm worried about her." "No, my friends will arrive soon." Song Ryu refused directly. When Jiang Lin saw Gu Yongning and his friends, she immediately cried and shouted, "Go away. I don't want to see you anymore. I don't like you anymore." Song Ryu looked up at Xue Ku and the others and said, "Did you hear that? We don't need your help. You can leave now." Even in the face of several men, Song Ryu was still full of momentum. Moreover, she had been very polite to Xue Ku and the others. Xue Ku said in a strange tone, "Miss Song, you should send your friends back as soon as possible. We are kind enough to help you." "No, I have said that my friends will arrive soon," Song Ryu said coldly. At this time, Qin Sheng finally arrived. Two cars directly stopped by the roadside, next to Xue Ku's car. Yang Daniu and several bodyguards followed Qin Sheng out of the car. Qin Sheng only saw Song Ryu, who had supported her friend, but he didn't see Xue Ku and the others clearly, who had their backs to him. Song Ryu's friend was obviously drunk. Song Ryu couldn't stand steadily, so Qin Sheng quickly walked over. Song Ryu also saw Qin Sheng. Because she had been looking at the roadside, she finally smiled and said, "My friends are here. You can leave now." Whether it was Xue Ku, Gu Yongning, or the others, they all wanted to know who the first Miss Song had called to save the situation this late at night. Maybe it was some rich playboy from Siju City. If they could explain it to him, they could make up for it. Therefore, they subconsciously turned around and looked behind them. When they saw Qin Sheng's familiar face, their expressions were a bit funny. What a F***king coincidence. Chapter 644. A stranger and unreasonable Xue Ku and Gu Yongning didn't dare to offend Song Ryu, but they didn't want to pay the price for such a senseless offense. Unfortunately, Song Ryu didn't give them a chance to explain, which made Gu Yongning and the others feel helpless. They had hurt Song Ryu's best friends so badly. How could Song Ryu forgive them? A man who also attended the yacht party tonight was also from Beijing. However, he didn't know many friends, and he didn't mix around much, so no one knew his identity and background. However, everyone greeted him politely. Everyone knew that those who attended the party were not ordinary people. The man in his early 30s was called Zhang Chong. He witnessed what happened on the yacht tonight. Coincidentally, this man happened to know Song Hushing, and their relationship was not bad. Because Song Hushing's immediate superior was his uncle, they had a lot of interaction. Like Song Ryu, Zhang Chong had been dragged there by a friend. He didn't have any social activities that night. He just sat there, drinking and enjoying the night view of the Huangpu River. Even his friend, who was a native of Shanghai, didn't know that he knew Song Hushing. He just wanted to take him there. It was not a bad thing to know more people. Zhang Chong didn't intend to tell Song Hushing, but he happened to see Xue Ku and the others surrounding Song Ryu and Jiang Lin. He could tell from Song Ryu's expression that she was obviously unhappy. Zhang Chong liked to travel, while Gugu was into literature and art, so he didn't know Shueku and the others, let alone were familiar with them. He just felt that these people were a bit too much. How could a man bully two girls? Not to mention one of them was Song Hushing's sister. After their car passed by, Zhang Chong felt that it was necessary to tell Song Hushing. After all, Song Hushing was his sister. If anything happened to her, Zhang Chong would feel uneasy. Zhang Chong was only worried about Song Ruyu. He didn't know whether those people knew about the Song family's background. Anyway, he didn't know much about the Song family. Several men bullied two girls. What the hell? Zhang Chong scolded angrily. Zhang Chong's friend didn't know Shueku and the others, but he had heard about Song Ruyu's background from his friends tonight. He didn't want to get involved in the fight between immortals, so he didn't want to get involved. The friend replied, "It has nothing to do with us. Why are you so nosy? These people are also from Beijing. Don't you know them?" "No, I don't." Zhang Chong nodded honestly. He looked very dutiful. His friend said helplessly, Lao Zhang, what do you want me to say? You really don't know how to make use of your advantages. If I were you, I definitely wouldn't be like this. How do you want to teach you?" Zhang Chong said angrily, "I hate that circle. It's too impetuous. That's why I came to Shanghai. I didn't expect that I would be cheated by you again. If you were my brother, I would have fallen out with you." All right, all good, he said. Zhang Chong was silent for a moment and suddenly asked, "By the way, what are the names of those men? Shueku and Gu Yoning. I heard that they all have powerful backgrounds." Zhang Chong didn't think too much about it. He just nodded and said, "I see. It seems that I have to make a phone call." His friend was surprised and asked, "Who are you calling?" Zhang Chong did not reply. He took out his mobile phone and dialed Song Hushing's number directly. It didn't take long for the call to be connected. Zhang Chong said directly, "Hushing, I'll cut the crap and get to the point. I was invited to a yacht party by my friend in Shanghai. I didn't expect to meet your sister here. She seems to be bullied. Call her and ask her what happened." In Beijing, Song Hushing, who was studying a new policy document in his study, was a little surprised when he received the phone call. After all, Zhang Chong seldom called him, although they had many topics to talk about. But after hearing Zhang Chong's words, Song Hushing was furious. He stood up abruptly and restrained his anger. "Old Zhang, do you know who bullied my sister?" Song Hushing asked in a gloomy voice. "Old Zhang, who bullied my sister?" Song Hushing didn't question why Zhang Chong didn't help. He knew Zhang Chong's character very well. He was the kind of person who didn't want to worry about anything. Zhang Chong was already thanking the gods for calling him. Zhang Chong replied directly, "My friend said that the guy's name is Shueku and Gu Yoning. He's also from Beijing. Do you know him?" Song Hushing didn't have much hope. He was ready to find a way to contact his friend, but he didn't expect that Zhang Chong would give him the name of the initiator. "Shueku and Gu Yoning? Good, very good. You've grown up and even dared to bully our Song family. Let's see what you're capable of." Although Song Hushing wasn't familiar with them, he knew who they were. He sneered and said, "Zhang, thank you. I got it. You don't have to worry about the rest." After that, Song Hushing hung up and was ready to call his sister Song Ryu. Anyway, the most important thing was to make sure that his sister was fine. After Zhang Chong hung up the phone, he finally felt much better. However, his friend next to him was shocked and asked carefully, "Zhang, who did you call?" Zhang Chong didn't understand why his friend was like this. He frowned and said, "Song Ruyu's brother, Song Hushing. I know him. I can't just let him know that someone bullied his sister." Zhang Chong didn't like to mix in that circle, and he was not qualified to enter the higher circle. Therefore, he didn't know Song Hushing's status among the people in Sijia City. However, his friend had heard a lot about Song Hushing. Although he had guessed the identity of the person on the phone, he was somewhat uncertain. After all, how could Zhang Chong know Song Hushing? However, after getting Zhang Chong's definite answer, his friend trembled and said, "Zhang, damn it, we're in big trouble this time." On the roadside outside the North Bund, no one knew about such an episode. Of course, it had nothing to do with Qin Sheng. However, if Shueku and Gu Yoning knew about it, they would kill Zhang Chong. How could Song Hushing know about it so soon? However, at this time, No matter Qin Sheng, Shui Ku, and Gu Yongning, no one could care about other things. No one expected that they would meet here by chance, which was also the first time they met officially. Interesting, really interesting. As opponents, they knew each other well. However, after all, it was the first time they met each other. They had to put on an act. They couldn't just fall out with each other, otherwise it would be difficult for them to deal with later. Shueiko whispered, "Damn it. I'm so unlucky tonight. I really didn't check the almanac before I went out. I really didn't expect it to be him," Gu Yongning said, squinting. At this time, those rich playboys were all focused on Qin Sheng and had long forgotten about Song Ruyu and Jiang Lin. After all, they came to Shanghai this time to make trouble for Qin Sheng, but they didn't expect to meet him so soon. Of course, they also wondered why Qin Sheng was invited by Song Ruyu. It seemed that the two of them had a special relationship. However, after thinking about it, it seemed that there were some rumors in the outside world that the relationship between Qin Chang'an and the Song family was not ordinary. It seemed that there was indeed such a relationship. Then the relationship between Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu could be explained. Shueiko didn't intend to hide it. Even if he was facing Qin Sheng, he had nothing to be afraid of. He looked at Qin Sheng and said directly, "Oh, I didn't expect that Miss Song's friend would be the young master of the Qin family." Qin Sheng frowned slightly and said, "Do we know each other?" As for Shueiko and Gu Yongning, except for the attack on Shueiko, he had no contact with them at all. However, he didn't know why he was very disgusted with these people, as if they were enemies in his previous life. In the afternoon, Bao Fan called him and told him that these people were in cahoots with Yin Chaozong. Qin Sheng was wondering how to deal with this matter, but he didn't expect to see these people at night. They were really haunting him. Gu Yongning stared at Qin Sheng fiercely. He hated everyone in the Qin family and hoped that the Qin family would be destroyed in the next second. He also hoped that Qin Chang'an would die without descendants. That was why he followed Shueiko to set up Qin Sheng. "Oh, it's normal that the young Master Qin doesn't know us. But we know him. After all, the young Master Qin is so famous that it's impossible not to know him," Gu Yongning said in a strange tone. Gao Shi and Subin looked at Qin Sheng with disdain. Gao Shi even had a provocative look in his eyes, as if he wanted to practice with Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng sneered and said, "Who are you?" Gu Yongning was a little embarrassed, as if his punch with all his strength had directly hit cotton, which made him very angry. However, Gu Yongning did not give up. He smiled and said, "Gu family, Gu Yongning." Anyway, the Gu family and the Qin family were life and death enemies. So, Gu Yongning did not need to be afraid of anything. He directly told him his name. "Oh, I don't know you." Qin Sheng still had the same attitude. The more indifferent Qin Sheng was, the more others thought that he was too arrogant and too f***ed up. He really thought that he was the young master of the Qin family and did not take anyone seriously. Shueiko squinted and stared at Qin Sheng. Did Qin Sheng really not know them? Shueiko did not believe it. If Qin Sheng really did not know them, then wouldn't this kind of opponent be played in the palm of their hands? Therefore, Shueiko felt that it was impossible. He must be acting. Young Master Qin really doesn't know us. Why don't I believe it? Shueiko laughed. Qin Sheng did not intend to pay attention to them at all. Instead, he slowly walked toward Song Ruyu and Jiang Lin behind Shueiko. Song Ruyu was confused. She did not expect that these people would know Qin Sheng, but Qin Sheng said that he did not know them. However, from the tone of Shueiko and the others, it was obvious that there was a smell of gunpowder. At this time, Gu Yongning, Gao Shi, and Subin seemed to have no intention of stepping aside. Song Ruyu was still supporting Jiang Lin, but Jiang Lin vomited again. Song Ruyu had to hurry to take care of her. "Get out of the way," Qin Sheng said directly. Gu Yongning squinted and looked straight at Qin Sheng, still not planning to step aside. Shueiko smiled and said, "Since young Master Qin does not know us, can we get to know each other and be friends?" Qin Sheng did not reply, but asked, "You don't want to step aside?" Shueiko was a little angry and sneered. "You don't want to give me face?" Behind Shueiko and Gu Yongning stood two bodyguards of the Gu family, and behind Qin Sheng was Yang Daniu. Yang Daniu had long felt that the atmosphere was not right, so he was always ready. Since Gu Yongning and the others did not want to step aside, Qin Sheng did not stand on ceremony. He reached out and was about to push them away. The bodyguards of the Gu family did not know Qin Sheng's identity. They thought that Qin Sheng was going to hit them, so they directly took 2 steps forward and wanted to stop Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng's expression changed instantly, and the look in his eyes became somewhat fierce. Yang Dainyu had traveled all over the country for so many years, so he had the ability to observe people's expressions. He instantly understood Qin Sheng's intention. Yang Dainyu went straight to the 2 bodyguards like lightning. Without hesitation, he suddenly grabbed the hand of the bodyguard in the front. Before the bodyguard could react, Yang Dainyu had already thrown him over his shoulder. The other bodyguard didn't expect that Yang Dainyu would attack him directly. He didn't wait for Gu Yongning to speak and subconsciously wanted to fight back. Yang Dainyu casually dodged his punch and then lifted his knee to hit the bodyguard's chest. Then, he took the opportunity to hit the bodyguard's chin with an uppercut. The remaining bodyguard was dealt with quickly and easily. Yang Dainyu's moves seemed very simple, but his strength was overwhelming. The bodyguard was not a match for him at all. Chapter 645. Putting it on the table, Chang Baji went to Tianmu Mountain to ask his senior for help for the second time. His senior, who had lived in seclusion for many years, could ask his most valued disciple, Yang Dainyu, to come out and help him. Moreover, Chang Baji had already tested Yang Dainyu's strength when he made a dazzling appearance this afternoon. Qin Sheng was present at that time. Based on his understanding of Chang Baji's strength, this Yang Dainyu, who had made a wild and dazzling appearance, was definitely not an ordinary person. He could force Chang Baji to almost use his full strength. Most importantly, Qin Sheng still didn't know how strong Yang Dainyu really was. Did he hide his strength in the afternoon? Therefore, Qin Sheng didn't worry at all. Would there be any accidents if he only took Yang Dainyu with him tonight? Yang Dainyu was more than enough to deal with the ordinary bodyguards of the Gu family. Since they were so arrogant, Qin Sheng wasn't afraid to teach them a lesson. Anyway, they were rivals now, and they already knew each other. Shueku and Gu Yongning wanted to put on a show, but Qin Sheng didn't even let them do it. Once they shed all pretenses of cordiality, some things would have to be put on the table. If Shueku and the others wanted to plot against Qin Sheng in secret, they would have to pay a higher cost and price. Yang Dainyu's name matched his strength. He was so arrogant and domineering. In the blink of an eye, the 2 bodyguards had no chance to fight back and were directly taken down. However, Yang Dainyu didn't know who they were. Uncle Chang had already told him to protect Qin Sheng. Since they dared to stand in Qin Sheng's way, he would directly beat them up. No one had expected Qin Sheng to fight without saying a word. Moreover, they didn't expect the man behind Qin Sheng to be so powerful. Why didn't they know about him before? What was more unexpected was that the 2 bodyguards of the Gu family were so useless that they were no match for him at all. They were defeated in the blink of an eye. This man seemed to want to beat them up. Shueku and the rest couldn't help but take 2 steps back. It wasn't that they were afraid of being beaten up, but that they couldn't afford to lose face. Song Ruyu, who was taking care of Jianglin, also didn't expect this to happen. It was beyond her expectation. Why did they fight? She regretted calling Qin Sheng. However, Song Ruyu was very smart. She knew that Qin Sheng wasn't an impulsive person. If there was no inside story, he wouldn't do this. Therefore, Song Ruyu didn't say anything or intervene. She just let Qin Sheng take the lead. Fortunately, when Yang Dainyu was about to continue his attack, Qin Sheng directly pulled him back and signaled him to stop. Yang Dainyu glared at the men in front of him for a while and then stepped back. After Yang Dainyu left, the rest of the people heaved a sigh of relief. However, none of these rich playboys from Sijio City could swallow this humiliation. Gao Shi took the lead and said, Qin Sheng, what do you mean by this? Gao Shi originally wanted to scold Qin Sheng. What the F***CK do you mean? But in the end, he held back. He did not want to offend Qin Sheng like this. Shueku gritted his teeth and said, First, young Master Qin, you're really awesome. I've seen it with my own eyes today. I've learned a lot from you, and I'll remember it. It was the bodyguard of the Gu family who had been beaten up. Gu Yongning felt the most humiliated. He gritted his teeth and said, "Young Master Qin is really impressive. You really look down on everyone. I've seen it too." At this time, Qin Sheng explained with a smile, "I'm sorry. My subordinate is insensible and offended you. I'll teach him a good lesson later. Please forgive me for offending you." Shueku sneered and said, "Interesting, young Master Qin. I didn't expect that this is how you make friends. I'll publicize it later." Qin Sheng said politely, "Thank you in advance." Shueku was so angry that he couldn't say anything. He was really unlucky tonight. Gu Yongning originally wanted to shed all pretense of cordiality. However, after thinking about it, he held back and thought it was unnecessary. Maybe this was Qin Sheng's intention. Therefore, Gu Yongning said harshly, "I hope young Master Qin can always be so impressive in the future." Shueku felt that if he stayed here any longer, he would really make a fool of himself. Should he let them beat Qin Sheng up? Could he beat the man who had just attacked them? Obviously, it was impossible. Then what was the point of staying here? It was better to go back and think about it in the long run. What happened tonight was nothing. There would be a time when they would pay back. Shueku snorted and said, "Let's go." Although Gao Shi and Su Bin were somewhat unconvinced, they still left with Shueku. They didn't forget to stare at Qin Sheng fiercely. One day, they would get even with him, new and old. At that time, they would see whether he would laugh or cry. This episode was finally over. After watching Shueku and the others leave, Qin Sheng quickly walked to Song Ruyu and asked, "How is it? Is her friend all right?" Song Ruyu didn't have time to ask Qin Sheng anything else. She replied, "She drank too much. Send her to the hotel first. It's so late, and she's so drunk. I dare not send her home." Qin Sheng nodded and helped Song Ruyu send Jiang Lin to the car. Then, he searched the nearest five-star hotel nearby and went to the hotel. On the way to the hotel, Song Ruyu saw a few missed calls on her phone. They were all from her brother, Song Husheng. Song Ruyu thought that something had happened to Song Husheng, so she quickly called him back. Song Husheng called several times, but no one answered. He was afraid that something might happen, so he quickly called his friend and asked him to find a way to contact Shueku and the others. Then, he would tell them that if anyone dared to touch a hair on his sister, he would definitely fight them to the death. Song Husheng didn't dare to tell his family. He wanted to figure out what was going on first. As soon as he hung up, he received a call from Song Ruyu. Song Husheng breathed a sigh of relief. After answering the phone, Song Husheng immediately asked about what had happened. Song Ruyu was surprised and asked, "How did you know?" Song Husheng said honestly, "A friend attended your party and saw what happened. He was worried about you, so he called me to tell me. You didn't answer the phone just now. You don't know how worried I was." Song Ruyu didn't want to cause trouble. Moreover, it was Jiang Lin and Gu Yongning's business. If she intervened, it would be too complicated. Therefore, Song Ruyu told Song Husheng that it was just an accident. Then, she explained why she had come tonight, how Jiang Lin had drunk too much, and that she had been taking care of her. Song Husheng was a little worried. "Where are you now? I'll ask my friend to help you." Song Ruyu refused directly. "No need. Qin Sheng is driving us to the hotel." Hearing the name, Song Husheng immediately became furious. He was even more furious than when he heard that Shueku and the others had bullied Song Ruyu. He even raised his voice a little. "Why are you with Qin Sheng? What's wrong?" Song Ruyu was confused. "Qin Sheng's grandmother is in the hospital. I came to Shanghai on a business trip this time. Grandpa asked me to visit her. That's why I thought of her and called him." Song Ruyu mentioned Grandpa. Song Husheng didn't know what to say. He really didn't want Song Ruyu and Qin Sheng to be too close. After all, Grandpa had arranged this for a purpose. Song Ruyu didn't want to say more. She said in a low voice, "I'll talk to you later. We'll arrive at the hotel soon." Before Song Husheng could say anything, Song Ruyu hung up the phone directly. Song Husheng, who was on the other side of the phone, was very angry, but he vented all his anger on Qin Sheng. After making sure that Song Ruyu was fine, Song Husheng called his friend just now and told him not to call Shueku and the others. He had already figured out what had happened. Although Song Ryu said it so casually, Song Hushing knew his sister's temper well. So he asked his friend to figure out what had happened tonight. If Shueku and the others had really bullied Song Ryu, he would definitely make trouble for them later, which could be regarded as a lesson. After Song Ryu hung up the phone, Qin Sheng didn't ask more questions. This was Song Ryu's privacy. He was not related to her. Song Ryu took the initiative to explain, "It's my brother." His friend also attended the party tonight. He saw me by the roadside and told him. He was a little worried, so he called. Okay. Qin Sheng just nodded and didn't say much. After arriving at the hotel, they spent a lot of effort to help Jiang Lin, who was completely drunk, settle down. Qin Sheng was ready to leave. He left a bodyguard downstairs in the lobby and told Song Ryu that if she needed help, she could directly find this bodyguard. Song Ryu said softly, "Then I'll walk you downstairs." Qin Sheng said that it was not necessary, but Song Ryu insisted. After all, she really troubled Qin Sheng tonight, and she felt somewhat embarrassed. On the way to the door, Song Ryu said, "Sorry to trouble you tonight. It's so late. I'll treat you to a meal another day." Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Don't be so polite. You said that we are friends. You called me, which means you trust me. Friends should help each other." Song Ryu just smiled. No matter what Qin Sheng said, she would treat him to a meal later. This was her principle, and it had nothing to do with others. "Do you know them?" Song Ryu didn't want to ask, but she felt that it was wrong not to, so she asked anyway. Qin Sheng sneered and said, "How can I not know them? Although it was the first time I met them, I should be considered old acquaintances. After all, they have been thinking about me a lot." Although Song Ryu didn't understand, she still sighed and said, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have troubled you tonight. Otherwise, what happened later would not have happened." Qin Sheng said honestly, "Don't think too much. What happened tonight has nothing to do with you. Sooner or later, and they will be like this. I just didn't expect to meet them here, so some things happened in advance." Qin Sheng said calmly, but Song Ryu felt that the story should be very complicated. She didn't ask more. If she really wanted to know, she could ask others later. Song Ryu raised her head and said with a smile, "Okay, I believe you can handle it well." Qin Sheng laughed. Although it was a bit troublesome tonight, he still gained something. Not only did he give Shueku a show of strength, but he also put the fight between them on the table. Next, he had to think about the next step. Chapter 646. Taking the initiative since Shueku and Gu Yongning had already met with Yin Xiaozong, Qin Sheng could naturally infer that these two groups of people had colluded with each other. Who knew when they had hooked up? When two groups of enemies from different circles met, Qin Sheng would not think that they were just drinking tea and chatting. There seemed to be no other explanation except for joining hands to target him. After all, there were no such coincidences in the world. Too many coincidences were intentional. It was just that outsiders did not know. Therefore, since Qin Sheng had met Shueku and Gu Yongning tonight, after considering some of the logic behind it, he decided to make a big deal out of it and magnify their conflict. When Qin Sheng returned home, Lin Su had already fallen asleep on the sofa. She did not call Qin Sheng to come home early. She knew that Qin Sheng had a lot of things to do recently. Of course, Lin Su also had a lot of things to deal with. In addition to the Lin family's company, she also had to help take care of Uncle Lin and Aunt Wang. After all, Qin Sheng did not have time. Qin Sheng gently carried Lin Su into the master bedroom. Lin Su, who was sleeping soundly, was murmuring in her sleep. No one knew what she was talking about or what she was dreaming about. Anyway, she did not wake up. Qin Sheng covered her with a quilt and kissed her forehead gently. Then he got up and went into the study. He wanted to deduce the environment he was in, predict any possible situation, and then come up with corresponding countermeasures. This time, he wanted to prepare for the worst. First of all, if something really happened to the Qin family, and then if the Zhu family really did not intend to help, then what would be the direction of everything? What would be his final situation? This night, Qin Sheng was very energetic and did not feel sleepy at all. It seemed that all the pressure had turned into fighting spirit. No matter how confused the road ahead was, there would be a time when he rushed out of it. In the morning, when Lin Su woke up, it was already 7:30. Lin Su vaguely remembered that she seemed to have slept on the sofa last night. Why did she wake up in bed? There was only one answer. That was, Qin Sheng came back last night and carried her back to the room. But when Lin Su turned around, she found that Qin Sheng was not next to her, which made her a little confused. Lin Su quickly got up. As soon as she opened the door, she heard something in the kitchen. Lin Su quickly walked to the kitchen and found Qin Sheng, wearing an apron, making breakfast. There were fried eggs, fruits, and so on the table. He saw Lin Su, who had woken up at some point, standing not far away from him. He smiled and teased her. I just made breakfast and was about to wake you up. You're already up. Are you hungry? Lin Su's eyes lit up. Lin Su did not say anything. She just pouted and ran to Qin Sheng. Then, she hugged Qin Sheng tightly and pressed her face against his chest like a spoiled little girl. Qin Sheng patted Lin Su's shoulder and said, all right, what's going on? Go take a shower and change your clothes. You still have to go to work after dinner. Lin Su muttered, when did you come back last night? Why didn't you wake me up when you came back? I saw that you were sleeping soundly, so I didn't want to disturb you. You must be exhausted recently, Qin Sheng explained with a smile. He felt somewhat guilty about Lin Su. He had promised Lin Su to go back to Ningbo to pay respects to his mother, but he had postponed it. He had promised Lin Su to visit second Uncle Lin, but he had no time, let alone care about Lin Su's work. I know you're worried about me. Go and take a shower. Qin Sheng patted Lin Su and told her not to worry about him. After breakfast, they went to their respective companies. Yang Daniu, who went back last night, was waiting for Qin Sheng in the underground parking lot. Chang Baji taught him these things. Of course, there were other bodyguards. When Qin Sheng arrived at the company, he did not see Zhong Shan, which surprised him. Zhong Shan came earlier than Qin Sheng every day. After asking Yin Pan, he learned that Zhong Shan was on the phone in the conference room. It seemed that something went wrong. When Qin Sheng arrived at the company, he did not see Zhong Shan, which surprised him a little. Every day, Zhong Shan came earlier than Qin Sheng. After asking Yin Pan, Qin Sheng learned that Zhong Shan was on the phone in the conference room. It seemed that something had gone wrong, and he did not look good. Qin Sheng did not think much about it. Who didn't have something to do? He thought it might be Zhong Shan's private affairs. He began to deal with today's work, and Yin Pan reported the progress of each matter by his side. Half an hour later, Zhong Shan returned to the office. He still looked pale. Qin Sheng asked casually, Brother Zhong, what's wrong? What happened? Zhong Shan did not mind Yin Pan's presence. He directly told Qin Sheng. Sheng Jing submitted his resignation report to Beijing. Qin Sheng's face changed instantly when he heard this news. He did not expect that what Zhong Shan was worried about was this bad news. Basically, Sheng Jing had been internally designated as the second in command of the new company after the reorganization. After Qin Sheng left Shanghai, Sheng Jing would be fully responsible for the new company. Moreover, Qin Sheng still needed Sheng Jing's help to participate in the reorganization. Now, Sheng Jing had resigned. What the hell was he supposed to do? Qin Sheng frowned and asked, Is there no way to save it? Zhong Shan said truthfully, I don't know who is in charge of this matter in Beijing. So far, they have agreed to Sheng Jing's resignation without informing us at all. I just called Sheng Jing, and he said that a large domestic bank was poaching him with a lot of money. He has no choice, and he likes that position very much. Qin Sheng gritted his teeth and said, We can keep him by paying him a high salary and giving him enough power. Zhong Shan thought for a moment and replied, Let's not talk about whether we have this right or not. The most important thing is that Sheng Jing has made up his mind. We have no way to change it. Qin Sheng gave in again and said, No, let me talk to him. Maybe there is still a chance. Zhong Shan stopped him directly and said, I don't think it is necessary, and I think this matter is too strange. Sheng Jing's resignation was too sudden. When I talked to him during this period, he did not show any signs of resignation at all. Moreover, he was full of expectations for the new company and set a series of ideas. He suddenly resigned, and the people in Beijing agreed without hesitation. I don't believe that there is no ghost. Zhongshan's analysis made Qin Sheng seem to understand. He asked, "What do you mean?" Zhongshan said without hesitation, "Someone is targeting you." Qin Sheng fell in a deep thought, and his face was a little serious. Yin Pan had already left the office sensibly. These high-level fights were not something she could interfere with. Zhongshan continued, "You and I are very clear that this time we went south to Shanghai to reorganize several companies in Shanghai. It is nothing more than a test for you by some people in the headquarters. It may be the board of directors, or it may be other shareholders. You will certainly not stay in Shanghai all the time. As long as the things in Shanghai are successfully completed, you may return to Beijing to take over the important task. But if the things in Shanghai are delayed for too long, who will benefit the most?" Qin Sheng understood what was going on no matter how stupid he was. He replied, "Some people do not want the reorganization to be too smooth, so they deliberately make trouble. Their goal is very clear. They are either delaying the time or letting the board of directors be disappointed in me. In this way, it will be difficult for me to take over. It is good that you understand." Zhongshan echoed and nodded. Qin Sheng frowned and said, "Who do you think it is?" "There is a mole in the group, but not exactly a mole. The background of each shareholder is unfathomable. If something really happens to Master Qin, and you can't take over, then only these shareholders will benefit." Zhongshan was not sure who it was, but he still knew about these things. Qin Sheng squinted and said, "I understand. I am very surprised that Master Qin doesn't care about these things." Zhongshan asked very doubtfully. Qin Sheng did not rush to answer. He got up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Looking at the prosperous Lijiazui financial district, he sighed and said, "Maybe he wants to see how my ability is and whether I can successfully complete the task under such conditions. Maybe he is willing but unable." Zhongshan was silent for a moment and said in a low voice, "Let's not talk about this now. Don't think too badly about it. Although Sheng Jing resigned, we still have other backup candidates. But we must catch Xu Yong. If something happens to Xu Yong, then we will be in danger." Qin Sheng agreed with Zhongshan's words and immediately said, "You call Xu Yong now and ask him to meet. I will treat him to dinner tonight." "Okay, I will call him now." Before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. It seemed that there was a big net being woven in the dark, and Qin Sheng might be the prey, or the prey might be the whole Qin family. The Qin family situation had to be considered, and the task in Shanghai had to be completed. Then how should he deal with the new hatred and old hatred? Qin Sheng had to make a choice. Yin Chaozong definitely had to take action, but Yin Chaozong had brought Xue Ku and Gu Yoning with him. At the same time, he had formed an alliance with Third Master Wu. What should he do? In that case, there was only one choice, which was to break their alliance and divide them from the inside. This would give him a chance to benefit from it. Xue Ku and Gu Yoning could not do this. They did not fall for this trick at all. He did not have enough bargaining chips and interest to tempt them. Therefore, Qin Sheng set his target on Third Master Wu. If he took a step back, he would be in a better position. At least he had to make concessions now. Otherwise, things would become more and more difficult. Therefore, Qin Sheng chose to take the initiative and talk to Third Master Wu. At least he had to stabilize Third Master Wu. Since he had made up his mind to make concessions, Qin Sheng immediately called Chang Baji and asked him to confirm whether Third Master Wu was still in Shanghai. They would take the initiative to find Third Master Wu. In the swimming pool of the W Hotel on the Bund, Xue Ku and Gu Yoning were swimming. Gao Shi and Su Bin were still sleeping. Their swimming skills were not bad. They had already swum for a kilometer, and it seemed that they were not satisfied. No one knew when Yin Chaozong arrived. Xue Ku and Gu Yoning said that they had something to talk to him about. They seemed to be in a hurry. Yin Chaozong had to put down his company's affairs and rush over. Fortunately, he was not far away. After Yin Chaozong arrived, Xue Ku and Gu Yoning came up. They drank and chatted with Yin Chaozong. Xue Ku went straight to the point. "Do you know who we met last night?" "Except for Qin Sheng, I can't think of anyone else," Yin Chaozong replied very directly. Gu Yoning was very surprised. "You can even guess this?" "I don't need to guess." If it was someone else, you don't need to ask me, Yin Chaozong said truthfully. His logical thinking ability had always been very strong. Shueka said directly, don't mention it. Let me tell you directly. Last night was really King unlucky. First, we offended the eldest miss of the Song family. Later, we met Qin Sheng. We were threatened by him and almost got into a fight. Tell me in detail, Yin Chaozong said very curiously. Therefore, Shueku and Gu Yoning repeated everything that happened last night. After listening, Yin Chaozong frowned and said, Song Ruyu is Song Hushing's sister? How did she and Qin Sheng know each other? Shueka said with a smile, don't worry too much. The Song family and the Qin family do have some relations. However, the Song family's status is destined to not intervene in the Qin family's affairs. Moreover, people like Song Hushing will not mix with Qin Sheng at all. You don't have to worry too much. Then why did you ask me to come here? Yin Chaozong was puzzled. Gu Yoning snorted and said, Qin Sheng is so arrogant. He did not take us seriously at all. He even hit our people in front of us. How can we swallow this? Chapter 647. Kill. The status of the Song family was special. It was not that any elder in the Song family was in a high position. On the contrary, almost all of the elders in the Song family were working in the government, and the furthest they went was only a deputy minister. However, old Master Song was still alive. As long as he was alive, no one dared to do anything to the Song family. After all, the price they had to pay was too high. Further down, the younger generation of the Song family was outstanding enough to make the younger generation of many families feel ashamed. Not to mention Song Ruyu, who had always been low-key, Song Hushing, who was relatively influential among the young playboys in Siju City, was not comparable to many people. The reason why Shueku dared to judge that Song Hushing would not get involved with Qin Sheng was that Song Hushing was too proud and arrogant. His ideal was definitely not a simple playful life, such as pursuing the so-called money and beautiful women. He had his own ambitions. Shueka felt that Song Hushing did not take these people seriously. How could he take Qin Sheng seriously? He had heard a lot about Song Hushing. Therefore, although what happened last night, Shueka was not worried about anything. What he cared about most now was how to vent his anger last night. Otherwise, he would be treated as a joke. And how could he win over other allies? They would say, Qin Sheng hit someone in front of you, and you did not even dare to fart. How can we believe you? Hearing Yin Chaozong's question, what should they do now? Shueku and Gu Yoning looked at each other and replied, Qin Sheng has a high school classmate named Hao Lei, who has been working for him. We can't do anything to Qin Sheng now, but we can't do anything to him. Yin Chaozong was quite familiar with Hao Lei. He was now on the same path as Shueku and Gu Yoning. As long as Shueku and Gu Yoning wanted to do something, he would do it. Kill him, Yin Chaozong asked. Shueku and Gu Yoning were stunned for a few seconds. They did not expect Yin Chaozong to be so direct. Was he deliberately trying to scare them? However, Shueku was still very cooperative. He said in surprise, what the F***CK? Lao Yin, killing is against the law. You are a bit wild. Yin Chaozong said disapprovingly. Then what should we do? If we can't kill him, he'll have to stay in the hospital for at least half a year. In this way, we can break one of Qin Sheng's shoulders, which is more beneficial to us, Shueka said proudly. Qin Sheng, you showed off in front of Miss Song last night. You have to pay the price, right? Otherwise, you'll really think that we're pushovers. Yin Chaozong thought for a while and said, okay, I'll make the arrangements now. Now that the matter was settled, Shueka changed the topic and asked, by the way, how are your allies? As for Third Master Wu, there shouldn't be any problem. After all, my first uncle has come forward. If that old thing still doesn't know what's good for him, I will have to settle accounts with him later. As for the others, I haven't asked you yet. Speaking of this matter, Yin Chaozong had a headache. He let out a long sigh and said, Third Master Wu is fine now, but others may need some time. Bossy refused him clearly. As for the Chu family, it's far away from us. We're not familiar with each other, and they don't seem to be interested in us. I'm still looking for a chance to go to Hangzhou. Shueka frowned and said, Lao Yin, you can't do this. Don't let us down. Yin Xiaozong's words were somewhat harsh. The look in his eyes changed slightly, but he still held back and said in a low voice, I'll try my best. If the Chu family really doesn't want to get involved, I can't do anything about it. However, it seems that we don't need so many allies. Gu Yoning helped Yin Xiaozong and said, Lao Yin is right. It's enough to have a Yin family and third Master Wu. We don't change our general direction and make trouble for him. But when we finally take action, we need to wait for the news from Beijing. Shueku didn't refute Gu Yoning. He smiled and said, Okay, that's it. Lao Yin, anyway, you've worked hard. Yin Xiaozong laughed and said goodbye to Shueku before leaving. These people who were too smart and powerful couldn't be true friends after all, but it was easier to deal with these people. He just needed to make everything clear. After Yin Xiaozong left, Shueku said in a low voice, Sheng Jing has resigned successfully. This time, it will take more time for Qin Sheng to reorganize several companies of the Chong and group in Shanghai. Ha. Well, Pudong Development Bank has already contacted Sheng Jing. They can talk about the specific time of joining and so on, Gu Yoning replied. This was what he should do. Shueku said happily, We don't care about this. But Sheng Jing said that Xu Yong is very capable. If we can get rid of him, Qin Sheng will really be helpless. But there has been no news from Xu Yong. It seems that he is not interested in this. Gu Yoning had contacted him. After all, Sheng Jing had disclosed the news. Shueku sneered and said, Let's try again. I don't believe that he is so stubborn. Gu Yoning could only think of another way, but he was worried about other things. He asked very seriously, Lao Shui, how long can the Qin family last? I can't wait to see them become a joke. After so many years of glory, it's time for them to fall. Shueku shrugged and said, We can't interfere in these things. I don't know, but I guess they can't hold on for long. There are serious internal and external troubles. Unless someone goes against nature and protects the Qin family, I'm afraid that no one can save the Qin family. But I think that no one is willing to do so. Gu Yoning was bored. Then let's continue to wait. In the office of the World Financial Center, Qin Sheng, who had been almost full of negative news in the past 2 days, was a little overwhelmed. Fortunately, Zhong Shan was watching over him. Without Zhong Shan, Qin Sheng was afraid that at this time, it would be a mess. Throughout the morning, Qin Sheng and Zhong Shan contacted and confirmed various things about the reorganization. As long as there was no problem on Su Yong's side, then the reorganization committee would be officially established. The next thing would be simple. With these professional managers in charge, Qin Sheng and Zhong Shan would worry a lot less. As for other middle-level managers, Qin Sheng was not worried that they would be poached. There were so many financial practitioners in the whole country that it was very easy to find middle-level managers. But it was more difficult to find people like Sheng Jing and Xu Yong. In the afternoon, Qin Sheng went to the hospital again. After visiting his grandmother, he returned to the old foreign-style house. His sister and small aunt were both there. His sister was going back to Beijing in a while. Of course, Qin Sheng had to see her off. After seeing Qin Sheng, Zhu Qingwen frowned and said, Why do you look so haggard? Are you too tired recently, or did you not rest well? Small aunt, I'm not that pretentious. I worked overtime last night. Maybe I didn't sleep enough. Qin Sheng explained with a smile. Zhu Qingwen complained, Child, no matter how important your work is, it can't be more important than your health. If you continue to be like this, I will call Qin Sheng on and ask him to give you half a month off. Qin Sheng replied in a hurry, Small aunt, I know. After seeing Qin ran out of the old foreign-style house, Qin Sheng was a little worried. After all, the disappeared rumors came back again. If there was no news, how could it be like this? So Qin Sheng said in a low voice, Sister, if anything happens at home, you can call me at any time. Don't be afraid to let me know. Don't let me know everything. Thinking of what Qin Sheng had said last night, Qin Ran sighed with emotion again. If something really happened to the old man, they would have to face a lot of things in the future. She turned around, hugged Qin Sheng gently, and said, Silly brother, take care of yourself. This scene was more or less sad. Zhu Qingwen was very distressed. This time, The Zhu family really could not do anything. There was no other way. After watching Qin Ran get in the car and leave, Zhu Qingwen said to Qin Sheng again, "Don't blame your uncle and others. They have their own difficulties." Qin Sheng held Zhu Qingwen's hand and replied, "Small aunt, I'm not a 3-year-old anymore. I understand." Zhu Qingwen knew that Qin Sheng could understand, but did he really not complain in his heart? She was not sure, nor did she dare to ask. She hoped that everything would go well. After leaving the old foreign-style house, Qin Sheng thought of something. He had planned to go to Changshan Ruoshui, but finally he asked Yang Daniu to turn around and go to Middle Huaihai Road. During this period, he had not contacted Qing Er. He did not know how she was doing. For this girl who was so simple that she was stupid, Qin Sheng felt sorry for her. Coincidentally, there was news from Beijing that Jiang Xianbang's matter was loosened. Qin Sheng went to tell Qing Er the news and also to see her. As for what happened that night, Hao Lei got the news from Hui Tao. Hui Tao finally failed to stick to the bottom line and betrayed Brother Wu. There was no other way. After all, Hao Lei was so cruel that Hui Tao had to say it. However, when Hao Lei went to find Brother Wu had already disappeared. Hao Lei was completely helpless. In the end, he could only teach Hui Tao a lesson and made him pay a lot of money. Then he drove him away. Of course, when he left, he did not forget to warn him that if he dared to harass Qing Er again, he would kill him. What happened that night had scared Hui Tao. He did not dare to think about Qin Sheng anymore. In the future, he would not dare to have any thoughts about Qing Er. When Qin Sheng arrived at the old foreign-style house, he asked Yang Daniu to get out of the car and ring the doorbell. Soon, the old housekeeper came out to welcome them and directly drove the car in. Qin Sheng asked Yang Daniu and the others to wait outside while he followed the old housekeeper into the house. On the way, Qin Sheng asked, "Uncle Wang, how is Qing Er these days?" Uncle Wang, the housekeeper, let out a long sigh and said, "Alas, since you left, she has become so haggard. She doesn't eat, drink, or sleep. She also asked for leave from school. She still doesn't allow me to call you. If you still don't come, I really don't know what to do." Qin Sheng frowned. He did not expect it to be so serious. How could this silly woman be so stubborn? Well, if she had not been so temperamental, she would not have been so stupid for Uncle Zhang's matter and would not have made him so angry. In the end, Qin Sheng could only let out a long sigh and comfort himself. Anyway, health was the most important thing. He did not want anything bad to happen to Qing Er. After Qin Sheng walked into the foreign-style house, he found that Qing Er was not in the living room. In the past, every time he came here, he could see Qing sitting in the living room. Uncle Wang, the housekeeper, said, "In her bedroom." Chapter 648. A piece of good news. Qin Sheng was really angry about what happened that night. If Qing Er had believed him, there would not have been so many things that happened later. Not to mention the fact that Qin Sheng was set up and put in danger because of Qing Er, and a lot of resources were used. The most important thing was that Qing Er almost got into trouble. Fortunately, the other side did not mess around. Otherwise, Qin Sheng really did not know how to explain to Uncle Jiang. However, during this time, Qin Sheng also understood that he could not treat Qing Er like an ordinary person. She was originally a little woman who had never experienced the affairs of the world. She had been growing up under the protection of Jiang Xianbang. She had never experienced the deception of the society and never cared about these trivial things. If nothing had happened to Jiang Xianbang, Qing Er might still be the woman who was above all worldly affairs, immersed in her own world. No one forced her to make any changes, and no one forced her to do anything she did not want to do, because Jiang Xianbang would shelter her from the wind and rain. However, one day, Jiang Xianbang suddenly got into trouble. He did not even have the ability to protect himself, let alone to protect her. He could only leave Shanghai and go abroad. At this time, Qing Er had to face everything alone. Those things that she had never experienced and endured suddenly all came crashing down on her. She was a woman who lived indifferently. How could she face and deal with it? After thinking it through, Qin Sheng was no longer angry. Otherwise, he would really be a little petty. Moreover, Qing Er's intention was good. Therefore, when he chose to come here, he had already decided to forgive Qing Er. He did not expect that Qing Er was torturing herself. The door of the bedroom was unlatched. The butler, Uncle Wang, left after bringing Qin Sheng here. Young people's affairs should be solved by young people. As an old man, he could not interfere. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly and shook his head. Finally, he opened the bedroom door. A light fragrance floated, refreshing and refreshing. After all, it was a girl's bedroom. Qin Sheng did not rashly enter without permission. He just casually looked inside the bedroom. Qing Er's bedroom was antique, which was similar to her temperament. Almost all the furniture was the color of log. The bedroom looked very big. It should be 2 bedrooms connected together. There were various kinds of musical instruments in it, including a valuable piano. Qing Er's attainments in music were not shallow. Otherwise, she could have been a teacher at the Shanghai Music Academy. Even though she had the relationship with Jiang Xianbang, if she did not have the real ability, she would have to leave after a few days. Jiang Xianbang was willing to spend capital to train Qing Er. The teachers he hired for Qing Er were all masters in the industry. Also, Qing Er was very talented in this aspect. At this moment, Qing Er was sitting on the balcony in her pajamas, looking out of the window in a daze. No one knew what she was thinking. There was a string of beautiful wind chimes hanging on the balcony. The breeze was blowing and it was tinkling. It was not inferior to any master's famous song. This was the charm of nature. Qing was surprised when she saw that it was Qin Sheng. She thought that Qin Sheng would not talk to her anymore. She did not expect that Qin Sheng would suddenly appear at the door. It seemed that only she knew the pain in her heart, so she could not help but shed tears. They had not seen each other for a few days. Qing Er, who was already very thin, became even thinner. Her face was a little pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She was very different from her image in the past. Anyone who saw her would have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Qin Sheng was no exception. After not seeing each other for a few days, Qing Er, who was already very thin, became even thinner. Her face was a little pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes, which was a far cry from her usual image. Anyone who saw her would have tender feelings for the fairer sex, and Qin Sheng was no exception. Qing nodded tremblingly. She was more afraid that Qin Sheng would turn around and leave again, which would make her lose all sense of security. After all, what happened that day was already very shocking to her. Qin Sheng slowly walked in front of Qing Er, bent down slightly, wiped her tears gently, and said with a smile, "I haven't seen you for a few days. You have become uglier. If you don't eat and drink, you may not be able to get married in the future." Qin Sheng walked up to Qing Er slowly, bent down slightly, and wiped her tears gently. He smiled and said, "I haven't seen you for a few days, and you become ugly. If you don't eat and drink, you might not be able to get married in the future." Qin Sheng's tone was very casual. Naturally, he was teasing her. Qing Er was not angry after hearing it. Instead, she felt a little warm, which meant that Qin Sheng still cared about her. Qing Er said cautiously, "I thought you would never talk to me again. I was going to ignore you at first, but after thinking about it, I couldn't bear to. So, I came to see you," Qin Sheng said with a smile. Then he casually fiddled with the wind chimes on his head, listening to the tinkling sound. Qing Er took the initiative to hug his waist again and said, "I'm sorry, I was really wrong." After saying that, Qing Er broke down again. Ever since Jiang Xianbang got into trouble, she had been suppressing her emotions. She felt that she could not help at all. She had been pretending to be strong when she met Qin Sheng previously. Otherwise, how could they have fallen into chaos this time? Qin Sheng stroked Qing Er's hair and comforted her. "All right, don't cry. It's all in the past. I don't blame you. Don't ignore me," Qing Er said pitifully. It seemed that she did not believe him. Qin Sheng was most afraid of women crying, which was the softest part of him. He had to say, "I won't. Don't think too much. I asked Uncle Wang to prepare some food. Eat something later. Look at how thin you are." Qing raised her head and said weakly, "Really? You're not lying to me?" At this moment, Qing did not have any defense. She was like a little girl who had not grown up yet. Qin Sheng seemed to be her backbone. Only when Qin Sheng was there could she feel safe. Qin Sheng said affirmatively, "I'm not lying to you. Whoever lies to you is a puppy. I'll tell you good news later. Take a bath and change your clothes first. I'll wait for you downstairs." Qing nodded doubtfully. As long as Qin Sheng was not angry and would not ignore her, she would do anything. Qin Sheng did not wait downstairs for long. Qing went downstairs. Uncle Wong had arranged for the kitchen to cook, but he was afraid that it would be too late, so he went out directly to buy some ready-made dishes, which were all Qing's favorite dishes. In the dining room, Qin Sheng still remembered how drunk he was when he came to the old foreign-style house for the first time. In the end, he had a bowl of light, sour, fine noodles, which was still fresh in his memory. After taking a bath and changing her clothes, Qing went downstairs. She was wearing a gray short-sleeved shirt and a black skirt with light makeup. Obviously, she had dressed herself up carefully. She sat in front of the mirror and looked at herself for several minutes, probably because Qin Sheng said she had become ugly. At this moment, Qing was obviously more energetic. Uncle Wong could not help thinking that whoever started the trouble should solve it. Qin Sheng was more useful. Otherwise, he was afraid that there would be an accident. "Eat quickly. You must be starving," Qin Sheng said softly. Qing did not sit opposite Qin Sheng. Instead, she sat beside him directly. The way she looked at Qin Sheng was obviously different from before. It was much gentler and more affectionate. This made Qin Sheng not dare to look at her directly. Qing asked softly, "Didn't you say you would tell me good news?" Qin Sheng said with a smile, "I won't tell you now. I'll tell you when you are full." Qing originally wanted to ask, but she obediently picked up the chopsticks and began to eat. Qin Sheng helped her pick up the food so that she could eat more. Not knowing whether she was really hungry or because of Qin Sheng, she ate more on purpose. Anyway, Qing, who could only eat one bowl of rice on normal days, ate 2 bowls of rice and a lot of food today, which made Uncle Wong very happy. After the meal, they moved to the living room. Qing asked, "Can you tell me now?" Qin Sheng did not hide this time. He directly told Qing, "I have news about Uncle Jiang. You should be back at the end of this month. I will go to Hong Kong to pick him up then." "Really?" Hearing this news, Qing was so excited that she did not know what to do. Qin Sheng nodded with a smile. This news was told to him by his sister. The old man had used a lot of his connections to solve this problem. At this time, the old man still cared about this matter, which meant that he really cared about it. Qin Sheng knew that his sister also helped. Maybe it was his small aunt who used her connections. After all, Uncle John's matter happened in the Yangtze River Delta. Compared with the old man who was far away in Beijing, his small aunt was more useful. Anyway, Uncle John's matter was finally solved. As for how it was solved, Qin Sheng did not care. He had completely repaid all the favors he owed Uncle Jiang. When Uncle Jiang came back, he would not need to take care of Qing anymore, which saved him a lot of trouble. After Qing was sure that Qin Sheng was not lying to her, she hugged Qin Sheng again excitedly and cried again. She sobbed and said, "Thank you." Qin Sheng hugged her and comforted her. It seemed that they had never been together like this before. After what happened that night, he obviously felt that Qing was very dependent on him. This was the 3rd time that he hugged a beautiful woman. Other pursuers probably did not even have the chance to hold her hand. Was it because the pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first? On the other side, the housekeeper Uncle Wong also heard the news. He just kept laughing and naturally ignored the intimate actions of the two. Of course, he hoped that the 2 children could be together. After a long time, Qing finally stopped crying. Women were really strange. They cried when they were happy and when they were sad. No wonder women were said to be made of water. "Uncle is finally fine," Qing murmured to herself. Qin Sheng patted her shoulder and said, "All the suffering will be over and everything will be fine again. Then we will go and pick up Uncle Jiang together." Qing looked at Qin Sheng softly, as if at this moment This man was full of infinite charm, making her fall in love with him step by step. Feeling that it was almost time, Qin Sheng was ready to stand up and leave. After all, he still had some things to do at night. Qing, and the housekeeper Uncle Wang walked Qin Sheng to the door. The moment young Dainyu saw Qing, his eyeballs almost popped out. Suddenly, he thought of what Uncle Chong had said and immediately looked away. Chapter 649. Being sentimental and righteous for Qin Sheng. The favor he owed Jiang Xianbang had finally been repaid. When Jiang Xianbang came back, Qing would not be so helpless anymore. With the resources left by Jiang Xianbang, they would naturally live a carefree life in the future. Qin Sheng did not need to worry about them anymore. For Qing, the biggest stone in her heart could finally be put down. She did not need to worry about her uncle anymore. After all, who knew what would happen to her uncle when he was abroad? It seemed that he would be safer in Shanghai. In short, Qing was very happy. She was in a different spirit. After all, people were in high spirits when they met with happy events. When her uncle came back, she would accompany him and take good care of him for the rest of his life. Qin Sheng had just said that he had not told her uncle the news and asked her to call him. So at this moment, Qing could not wait to run back to the bedroom and sit on the cradle on the balcony. Listening to the tinkling sound of the wind chimes, she called her uncle. After hearing the news, Jiang Xianbang, who was enjoying himself in New Zealand but lonely, was not as excited as he had imagined. He did not know whether he had already accepted his fate or had seen through the human relationship. Jiang Xianbang said calmly, "Girl, thank Qin Sheng for me." After hanging up the phone, Jiang Xianbang let out a long sigh. It seemed that he had a lot of emotions to say, but he had no one to say them to. Of course, he knew that the Qin family must have put in a lot of effort for him. Although this was Qin Sheng's favor, he would also remember the Qin family's kindness. Jiang Xianbang thought of the afternoon at the foot of Zhongnan Mountains. Maybe at that time, many things in his life had been destined. Fortunately, in the years since then, although he had some tyrannical means, he had never done anything against reason and nature, so he could have such a good end in his later years. Jiang Xianbang had made up his mind that when he returned to Shanghai, he would not worry about anything. He would just live a life of raising flowers and drinking tea. If he was interested, he could cultivate 1 or 2 young people who would appreciate him. After leaving Middle Huaihai Road, Qin Sheng had temporarily stopped thinking about Jiang Xianbang. Instead, he was thinking about how to talk to Xu Yong later and how to stabilize or move this man so that there would not be any hidden dangers left. When Qin Sheng went to Lujiazui, Feng, he was in a hotel under the Yin clan, talking to a few fierce people whom he had spent a lot of money to hire. Feng, he was polite to these people, but when he had to be tough, he would be tough as well. Furthermore, the two of them only had mutual benefits and did not have much of a relationship. I've said most of the things. Who's going to do it? Our boss has already said that this matter will not count as the reward we promised you previously. There will be additional rewards. Feng He, who was sitting on the sofa and smoking, said arrogantly. In his eyes, these people were merely tools that could be used. Qian Tong's master giggled and said, "Master, how much is the reward?" 500,000, Feng He said without blinking his eyes. 500,000 seemed to be a drop in the bucket for him. Of course, although the money was not his, he had been in the Yin family for so long. What had he not seen in the world? Qian Tong's master didn't wait for the others to speak before he spoke up. Both of us will go, and we only need a portion of the reward. What does master think? The two men's eyes were shining, but before they could react, they were snatched away by this old man. They cursed a few times in their hearts, but they didn't say much. They couldn't lower their status too much. Feng He was very satisfied and said, "Old master, then I'll leave this matter to you and your master. Don't make a mistake. My men are already looking for the target. When they find it, they will inform you. At that time, you should seize the opportunity." Qian Tong's master said happily, "Master, don't worry. Both of us have always been reliable." Since everything had been arranged properly, Feng He was ready to leave. He could rest assured that the master and his disciple would take action. After all, this was also a very important matter that young master had told them to do. They could not make a mistake. It was not convenient for Gu Xiaobo and him to show up now. When he was about to walk out of the room, Feng He turned around and reminded again, "Remember, don't kill him. Otherwise, you'll be the scapegoat." Qian Tong's master was still the same. He said, "Master, don't worry." After Feng He left, the middle-aged man muttered a few words in a bad mood. "Old B** starred. You only care about money." Qian Tong's master was not angry at all. He said happily, "Who doesn't like money? If we don't like money, why do we come here? Do we have nothing better to do?" The middle-aged man was not in the mood to quarrel with Qian Tong's master. The old bastard was very vicious. If he died suddenly one day, he would be really happy. The scarily thin man was not interested in this. After Feng He left, he also left. He almost stayed in the room every day and did not go out at all. He was not interested in the outside world at all. No one knew what special hobbies he had. After everyone left, Qian Tong stared at his master for a while. Unexpectedly, his master scolded, "What are you looking at? It's all your fault. If it weren't for saving money for your wife, I wouldn't have come out to risk my life." Qian Tong did not dare to quarrel with his master. He admitted his mistake happily and said, "Master, you are right. Master, you are right. It's all my fault. I'm so useless. Master, you have suffered a lot." Qian Tong's master said angrily, "You are not bad." Lujiazui was the central financial district. There was no shortage of rich people here. Therefore, there were many high-end restaurants here. It was not a big deal to have a per capita income of more than 1,000 yuan. Zhongshan did not know Su Yong's taste. In the end, he asked Yin Pan to book a Japanese restaurant. It was acceptable to eat something light in the evening. Moreover, Japanese restaurants in Shanghai were more popular. The most Japanese restaurants in the country were in Shanghai. It was no wonder that the annual big data showed that Japan was the favorite tourist destination of Shanghai people. The Japanese restaurant was on the 6th floor of a building. The decoration style was naturally Japanese. However, there were many local Japanese handicrafts on display in the restaurant, which looked a little old. In the private room, Zhongshan and Xu Yong had already arrived. They were drinking sake and chatting. They were not disappointed by Qin Sheng's late arrival. Originally, Qin Sheng and Zhongshan had planned to get closer to Xu Yong first and talk about business after he arrived. Xu Yong was a 36-year-old man. He was dressed in standard financial elite attire. He wore a well-tailored British suit. As for whether it was custom-made on Seville Avenue, no one knew. Zhongshan was not a fashionista, so he could not tell the difference between British and Italian styles. Xu Yong, who had taken off his jacket, looked particularly well-maintained. His chest muscles stretched out his shirt, and there was not a trace of fat on his belly. Not to mention, his face was angular. This was perhaps the biggest characteristic of the financial elites who returned from overseas. This was because the financial elites of Wall Street had always put fitness in a more important position. After all, if you work hard to earn money, you had to be alive to spend it. Otherwise, you would die after earning money for a few years. Xu Yong rolled up the sleeves of his shirt, revealing a classic Lang wristwatch on his wrist. The lowest price of this wristwatch was about 250,000 yuan, but no one knew which model it was. Xu Yong, who was never short of money, was never stingy with himself. Zhongshan looked very casual. There was a big difference between him and Xu Yong, even in terms of temperament. Zhongshan gave people a mellow feeling, while Xu Yong was full of fighting spirit. Xu Yong, to be honest, with your resume, it is difficult to find any kind of job. Why did you choose to work in Chang'an? Zhongshan asked casually. The corners of Su Yong's mouth turned up and his eyes were smiling, but he gave people a feeling of calmness. He said, "There's no reason. Many companies don't accept my ideas. At that time, only this company approved, so I came. To be honest, in this company's reorganization, we ranked all the company's executives. There are only 4 A-level executives, and you are one of them. Compared to the others, you are the only one who is not in charge of the company," Zhongshan said with a smile. The purpose of saying these words was very obvious. It was to show that they valued Su Yong's ability. Xu Yong was very polite. Thank you. Zhongshan did not talk nonsense. He went straight to the point. So, we hope you can take a more important position in the new company. Xu Yong hesitated for a moment and said, Assistant Zhong, I know what you mean by inviting me to dinner. The news of Mr. Sheng's resignation has spread like wildfire. Now there are all kinds of rumors in the company. You are afraid that I will also resign, right? Zhongshan was stunned. He did not expect that Xu Yong would be more direct than him. Did he also have this plan? At this time, the waiter led Qin Sheng into the box. Qin Sheng also heard Su Yong's words. His face changed slightly. He was as worried as Zhongshan. Seeing Qin Sheng coming in, Zhongshan and Xu Yong stood up at the same time. Xu Yong smiled and said, Chairman Qin. Xu Yong had already known the identity of this young man. He was the son of Qin Chang'an, the founder of the whole Chang'an group. This time he came to Shanghai for the company's reorganization, but everyone was very doubtful about his ability. They felt that he could not take on such a big responsibility. Many people were ready to jump ship. Xu Yong was a little worried at first. But after the interview and chat that day, Xu Yong felt that this young man was not like what people said. This young man was very capable, and he was also very accomplished in finance. Qin Sheng smiled and said, Brother Su, take a seat. You don't have to be so polite. After the three men sat down, they drank a few glasses of wine. After that, they chatted politely for a while. At this time, Qin Sheng smiled and said, Brother Su, I heard what you said just now. Tell me the truth. Did anyone come to you? Xu Yong did not hide and said honestly, Chairman Qin, to be honest, someone did come to me and offered me a very tempting bargaining chip, but I refused. Qin Sheng was surprised and asked why. Because they don't understand me, Xu Yong said slowly. Qin Sheng and Zhongshan looked at each other and at the same time, waiting for Su Yong's answer. Xu Yong said slowly, Chairman Qin, Assistant Zhong, do you know why I'm willing to stay? I'm a nostalgic person. Of course, I also have ideals and ambitions. But there's another very important reason. Qin Sheng asked subconsciously, What is it, Brother Su? Tell me. Xu Yong said slowly, When I left Wall Street, I already had financial freedom. Of course, the financial freedom I mentioned is definitely within my scope. After all, the concept of financial freedom is very vague. Many people don't understand it all. I know. Qin Sheng nodded slightly. He agreed with this point. After all, human nature was too complicated. If one could not recognize oneself clearly, many things would be vague. Xu Yong did not say too much nonsense. Instead, he said, When I joined this company, they not only approved of my ideas, but also gave me absolute freedom. Of course, I did not let them down. But this is not the reason why I stayed. The reason why I stayed is that there are dozens of people in the department that I am responsible for. They were all interviewed or poached by me. If I leave, what will happen to these people? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.